find empty slots like between.
Real quick, I want to check on the audio. Jane, can you hear us okay?
Yes, thank you for asking.
All right, thanks, Jane. Yes, Fiona.
Not hold a charge. Sorry, I'm gonna entangle you in your proximity with
Do what you need to do.
cords and wires.
I'm not bothered.
Okay.
Feel free to open it up and we can do intros and I'll get the presentation.
Okay, officially, it's 1:00 p.m., January 28th, Tuesday. It's Tuesday, right? And we're gonna start with this work session of the Lake County Board of County Commissioners. First up, we have Parks, Recreation, and Open Space.
I'll let you do your intro, sorry.
Yeah, sure, okay. I'm Duncan Chisholm, I'm the Director of Parks, Recreation and Open Space. I'd like to introduce a couple of my Deputy Directors. Brian here, who's the Deputy Director of Get Outdoors Leadville, and Jane, who is Deputy Director of Open Space. So I'll refer to them when you've got some questions which I don't know the answer to. Just wait for the presentation to bring up.
Thank you.
Wonderful,
So,
thank you.
Get to know about GOAL a little more and the impact we've been having last year. It's still in draft form, so it will be released officially next month. Members of the public can reach out to me if they want to see it, but it will be publicly released next month.
Thanks, Brian.
Too big a file. Breaking the internet.
Sorry, still loading.
There it is. Okay.
Cool, okay. So this presentation follows the format we've been receiving from each other department, so I'll run through it in reasonable brevity, and feel free to ask questions as we go along, or you can wait to the end. So, Lake County developed a Parks and Recreation Board back in 1992, which was formed to operate, manage and improve and maintain the Lake County Intermediate School swimming pool and gymnasium known as the Community Recreation Centre. It was disbanded in 2002. Other highlights, 1997 was a...
Sorry, is that?
I don't know. It never rings. Apologies about that.
No worries.
1997, the Lake County Open Space Initiative was formed. In 2002, a recreation master plan was completed by the Leadville Coalition and funded by Lake County, and that formed the Lake County Recreation Department. Fast forward to 2015, Get Outdoors Leadville was identified as a need to drive outdoor accessibility work. 2016, GoCo awarded $3 million to formally establish Get Outdoors Leadville. 2020, Goal established their ever popular community gear library, which opened to the public in 2021. Also in 2021, a new Parks, Recreation and Open Space Master Plan was begun to review the 2002 plan and develop a new direction. In 2022, the Parks, Recreation and Open Space Department was created as an outcome of the Parks and Open Space Master Plan. 2023, we've began moving Goal into county integrations under the proposed department. 2024, we've brought Jane on board to lead some open space program work, and I started as director in October 2024. So,
Okay.
thank you. Just a little bit of background about me. Clearly, I'm not local. I'm a Kiwi, New Zealander. So I've got 25 years, give or take, work in parks and recreation in a local government setting. I've got a Bachelor of Parks, Recreation and Tourism Management. I've worked mainly in New Zealand, but also some time in the UK, and some previous to this I was up in Alaska, owning a small department in rural Alaska. So I've got a background in parks and recreation. My flavours are around community recreation, engagement, facility planning, partnership development, how we can do more for less. So that's my flavour. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. This is a really good opportunity for us, and I look forward to leading the department going forward. So, all right.
And if you all have any questions about goal, I can help through that as well. My background is from a nonprofit and philanthropic sector. So grant making, grant management, public health nonprofit specifically. I used to work at Build Generation. So I started at Get Outdoors Leadville in 2022 as a program manager, and then I came into this role after the last director for Goal left. I've been involved with Goal since its inception in 2015 when the work was identified to form Goal as well. And Jane, can you give some of your
We can talk offline.
Okay, cool. So the next slide. So, PROS isn't a statutory required department. It's interesting that the county runs a Parks and Rec department. I'm not sure how many counties in Colorado run the types of services that we do. So we are unique, which is cool. It's great. Great
Versus
opportunities.
the municipality?
Totally, or a special district.
Mm-hmm.
It's traditionally what counties do.
Mhm.
We provide recreational stewardship, outdoor growth opportunities for the people of Lake County and visitors. A lot of our work is recreation, social connection, building community, building skill development, physical activity, those types of things, promoting healthy lifestyles. We also help contribute to a sense of place, belonging, help with community values. We also build strong relationships to the natural environment. Approximately 80% of Lake County is public land, open outdoor space, so it's important to maintain that and the special characteristics that come with that. We provide, protect, improve open spaces, parks, playgrounds, athletics fields. It's also important to note that the maintenance of those facilities is undertaken by the Public Works Department. We also ensure that all spaces, programs, amenities are inclusive and accessible to our diverse population. So our needs are changing in this community, so we need to plan for that. Next topic. So how do we involve the community? So we obviously use several methods. We involve obviously basic evaluations of our programs. Do people enjoy it? How many people came? What's the outcome they want from it? We do regular and consistent messaging about our programs and spaces. We offer free community events, and we've obviously got a recreation advisory board, and we'll talk about a little bit about that coming up. Some current projects. We're working on Lake Fork Branch with the Trust for Public Lands to make that piece of land available for water and land protection purposes. We're working on the Arkansas River Community Preserve, public access to that. We'll talk soon about a strategic plan.
Where's Lake Fork Ranch?
The Cavalli Ranch, we have, right across from Outward Bound, that big 7,000 acre, or 700 acre.
Yeah,
land.
between the
The
golf
one is
course.
for sale for 12.5,
Yeah,
and who's gonna buy it?
so we are having ongoing discussions with Trust for Public Lands, who is a land trust nonprofit organization that focuses on these kinds of large dollar value acquisitions. It's in partnership with the BOCC. It's an ongoing process. We are at the very early stages of communications and conversation with the family. But there's a lot of interesting things tied into this project, but for a really high level view of it, ultimately the last BOCC was interested in acquiring that property ourselves. There is a lot of opportunity for that to be split into some other options, so we might hold a portion of the fee title. We might put some of that property into a conservation easement that then gets donated to a land trust. So there's a lot of uncertainty and flexibility in how this plays out. And it ultimately comes down to legal discussions with the family and Trust for Public Lands around deciding what that dollar value actually is based on fair market.
The
So
Trust for Public Lands is a federal entity, or is it?
they're a federal nonprofit.
They're federal.
Yeah.
So they would be, it's a $12.5 million purchase, they would.
Yes, and so what a group like TPL does is they come in and they act as an intermediary. So the end landowner is not directly working directly with the family or the realtor on that acquisition. It ends up being directly with TPL, and then they turn around and they sell that, usually within the same day, to the end recipient. Their role in this would be to do all of the fundraising and to help us identify where those dollars are. So it's not a $12 million ask for Lake County. It's in partnership and collaboration with other funding opportunities.
And what was the former board's goal or vision for that property?
The biggest,
Goal, the interest of the former board was the water rights.
it's the
How much
last
are those
large
worth,
water
roughly?
rights.
sorry, what's
Is there a number on how much those might be worth?
Mhm.
They're old, I know that.
Yeah.
Sure, and we will talk about this more when we get
Okay.
into the topics and then a deeper
Sorry, I
dive.
don't mean to derail this.
No,
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 no.
no,
Well,
these are good questions, we'll talk about it more with Bryce, cause Bryce touched on it, we'll touch on it here, but that was the impetus from the previous board.
And then also as a benefit to have that land to build
It's open
something.
Not for development, yeah, so that's kind of the component here of the county, potentially having that property in fee title would be to preserve it and prevent development so that we can utilize it from an open space perspective, from the water rights perspective. It's the last significant water rights that are probably gonna be available in the county for quite some time. And then to look at interconnectivity within our community. So it directly is adjacent to the Lake Fork mobile home community, so talking about general connectivity to community.
Okay, thank you.
What am I up to? Strategic plan, we'll talk about that as we move forward with our new department. An ongoing piece of work is addressing deferred maintenance. That's been talked about in a number of presentations, so I don't need to dwell on that. Goals, 10-year celebration is this year, Brian?
Yeah, so goal has been in place for 10 years. We started our grassroots community organizing back in 2015, and it aligned with Great Outdoors Colorado's funding opportunity, which was a $10 million pot of money for communities across the state. If you don't know, funding for Great Outdoors Colorado comes from the Colorado Lottery. We are the only entity in the whole country that has a lottery dedicated to education, conservation, preservation of open spaces. And they saw that, why are we protecting all this if people aren't gonna be able to access it later? So they started an initiative to get youth and families involved. That's where we came, and previous to that, one of the impetuses for us to get started it on this research plan in 2015 was the Youth Master Plan, which was a health plan that specifically looked at addressing healthy youth behaviors, such as substance use reduction or safe substance use, increasing healthy behaviors such as physical activity, decreasing obesity rates, etc. So it was informed by that Youth Master Plan, which was another community plan that was done from 2010 to 2013, I believe. And then we just built upon that work, and we've been around for 10 years. We've been offering programming for about 8 years. If you have young children, they may have participated with us. We run Rocky's Rock, which is the largest licensed childcare center in Lake County during the summer. And we also have grants that we secure for employment of our local youth and teachers and any other individuals who are looking for part-time or seasonal.
The last bullet point up there, the Outdoor Equity Summit, that's currently, as of today, just been paused.
It won't be paused.
Okay.
Our spending sources will be paused, but we will continue to run this. So the Nuestro Legado Outdoor Equity Summit is to convene members from across the state to engage in conversations about how to make the outdoors more diverse. Generally speaking, the outdoors is old white guys who are involved, usually from generations of wealth. So we're trying to expand it so that more people are accessing it, kids in schools, community programs, etc. So we're convening people to chat about that, and we have a capacity of about 150 individuals who are coming to that, and it's going to be a good spending weekend for Lake County as well, since people are coming from across the state and staying overnight and buying food around here in local restaurants. But the piece that Duncan mentioned was the White House yesterday night released a memo halting federal spending on federal financial assistance programs, which is still to be determined what that means, whether that affects food, nutrition. I think they just said that it's not gonna affect Pell Grants or student loans, but we are receiving federal funding from ARPA that was siphoned through the state to the Office of Outdoor Recreation Industry. That was then dispersed throughout the state, and we were one of the grant recipients. So we're waiting to hear back on the legal team from the state department to see if we will continue to use those funds. It's a reimbursement-based grant, but regardless, we will run this. We have 84 people registered, and we're committed to seeing this through.
Thanks, Brad.
What do you mean by old white guys? And as an old white guy, am I welcome at that meeting?
Of course. Yeah.
What do you mean by old white guys? How did we dominate the outdoors?
Do you know who participated in the 10th Mountain Division?
Yeah.
Yes. Can you explain who that might have been?
No, maybe you can tell me that.
So generally, the ski industry, as you all know, came from Nordic countries. Nordic demographics are Anglo identifying, or just generally white identifying. And because of that, those with more expertise and more engagement inside those sports are typically individuals who, within the census, are counted as white. And the ski industry especially has been dominated by individuals who are wealthier, they're older now, and they're white individuals. If you look at who set up Ski Cooper, Vail Resorts, Aspen, etc., you will see that those are individuals who are white identifying. So we have a broader, more diverse country, and as such, everyone deserves the opportunity to be represented in there, which is why GOAL exists, so that we can break down financial barriers and access barriers, and any other cultural barriers, so that people are welcome to join and they don't feel daunted because of a language that they might not speak 100%, or they just don't have the generational wealth that has been built up from other families who've been able to establish their roots in the country.
So the goal is to get more diversity in the ski industry?
For this one, it's just generally outdoors, but that was an example to uphold, because if you talk to a lot of people within the business industry, they will tell you the same, and they're trying to modify their business plans to engage a broader audience, because if they don't, their businesses will fail because they aren't reaching a broad enough audience.
Okay, thank you.
Cool, thanks. At the moment, we've got 3 separate business areas, each with their own mission. So we'll talk a bit about our short-term goals coming up, but at the moment, our Parks and Recreation business area its mission is to provide affordable indoor and outdoor recreation opportunities for physical and social well-being in our community. And there's some examples of the types of activities that we provide. Our open space is to enrich the quality of life in Lake County through the conservation and stewardship of land, water and wildlife, while providing inclusive access to outdoor recreation opportunities.
Put those grooming photos on there for you, Matt.
Yeah, thank you. Did you do that?
What's that?
Did you groom that?
I gotta give the credit to Sterling for that round. I was on the snowmobile taking the photo of the roller though.
And the new machine is out there and working?
Not yet, we're still
Okay.
waiting for some mechanic upgrades.
Yep. And Get Outdoors Leadville mission is to deepen our community's connection to the natural world by expanding equitable access to culturally informed and enriching outdoor experiences. So part of my work is to think of how do we bring those 3 streams under one vision, one mission. So we'll talk about that shortly. Our community impact. So in 2023, our Parks and Recreation programming served over 600 young people, over 1,000 adults and seniors. We had about over 900 drop-in programs and over 1,000 in community events. Goal in 2023, 2,700 young people, 1,300 people in community programs, roughly 4,000 repeat visits. That's increased significantly in 2024. We did about 8,100 total program participants. And that reflects our community, age-wise, try and provide diverse opportunities for people.
You know, as one of these participants, speaking not as a commissioner, but as a citizen, could I ask you why it seems like it's so hard to find and sign up and register for certain programs?
It's a good question.
Seriously,
Yeah.
what?
Good question, right? So at the moment, we mainly utilise an online registration system. Is it fit for purpose? That's a good question. Do people know about it enough? That's a good question too. How do we increase participation via that method? Do we still use paper? How do we actually get more people involved? So these are questions I need to drill into.
Yeah, can we just get a
understand.
link, like on the, like I'll dive into the Rec Parks and Rec,
Yep.
Part of the website, county website, and it's like I can't find
Yeah.
links going
Yeah,
right
yeah,
to.
yeah.
ActiveNet is listed, that's the online registration
Yeah.
platform that is listed as a link. Where it's buried is
Yeah,
another
that's, yeah,
discussion, and I think the website structure itself is something we're really trying to prioritize to make that clearer.
totally.
Okay.
Like, effectively it needs a big button. Click here to register.
Yeah,
It's not going to be hard to solve, right?
right. I'll save another question for when it comes up.
Cool, okay. And obviously our open space program, we're advocating for the protection, conservation, assets, supporting visitors who come and use their public open space.
And for goal, these numbers are slightly outdated because they were submitted in December and we're still doing data collection. So I'd encourage you to look at the draft of the annual report on page 7. There's a page dedicated to our community impact. And the updated number for total program participant days is 8,793 individuals, or not unique individuals, we count program participant days due to the nature of our programming. And you'll just get some fun stats around there, like we have invested over $181,000 in the community through salaries and wages, and we're also a much cheaper option or affordable option for families to go to summer camp and get childcare during the summer as well.
Cool, thank you. So, budget. So, as with every presentation you've had, there's always some issues with the budget in terms of how things were classified. As you can see in our revenue, we're suddenly miscellaneous revenue and intergovernmental revenue, and that's not necessarily the case. We do charge for our services, we do get grants. Again, I can't undo previous way things were coded, but moving forward we're going to work with our finance department to make sure things are properly categorised in terms of our revenue.
So we've lost about $1 million in revenue in this department between the 2024 and 25 year.
No, so
Yeah.
that one is not revenue loss, just revenue
Shifted to a different,
more realistic with what we're getting. So we operate on a reimbursement basis because of a state grant from GOCO.
Yeah.
And that was a reimbursement done for a couple of years. When I stepped in, doing some financial cleanup to be up to speed with everything, but there are two separate reimbursements, one for about $1.4 million across 2019 to 2021, I believe. And then another reimbursement that was submitted for fiscal year 22 that totaled almost $400,000. So that's not revenue loss, it's just the county being reimbursed, and myself and my team are working on cleaning things up so that we're on a better reimbursement schedule.
Yeah. So again, one thing we've talked about, and again with the same with the finance department, improving systems, improving processes. How do we account for money? Yeah, things like that. So we've got a bit of work to do across the organisation to improve our systems. I can break down this is combined pros and goal. If you want particularly pros and particularly goal, I can provide that information for you later.
Yeah, at a later date, we can take a deeper
Yeah,
dive
yeah.
into this stuff. For now, just for presentation
Yep.
purposes, I'll keep any
Yep.
specific extra questions.
Cool, and obviously, proposed budgets going forward, they're based on some assumptions, whether those assumptions are correct, given the current climate. We'll have to review some of those numbers up there, especially in terms of, the intergovernmental grants, bits and pieces. The climate is changing by the hour, so.
We gotta be acrobats and just keep moving with it.
Exactly. Okay, expenditures. So again, 2024, interesting setup. Moving forward, it appears that we've reduced budgets and added some cost savings where we can. Obviously personnel are our biggest cost. You know, we're probably the largest county department by numbers of people employed, so that reflects that. You've had explained to you previously what professional services and supplies and bits and pieces, so if you've got any specific questions around those, let us know, otherwise we'll move on, but certainly going forward, we're looking about how we can do better, right? How we can build systems to provide value. So we'll work through that. End of the day, we do a really good job for the money, right?
Yeah.
You know, so we've just got to show that better. Cool. All right, department goals. So I've been thinking about this a lot since I've been here. The big piece of work for us, and we've started this conversation, is as a department, what are we? What's our purpose? What are we trying to do? What's our role? What's our mission? What's our why? Why do we exist? What type of services do you as a BOCC want? What does the community want? What's your goals? How do we contribute to your strategic priorities? So there's some ongoing conversations which need to happen, which will come out in time, right? Because ultimately as a department, we're here to deliver what you want, right? And to contribute to the county's overarching goals. So if a program isn't meeting a particular goal, we need to review why we deliver that. Right? The other thing I want to look at is the role of the Recreation Advisory Board. What is it? What's its purpose? How's it supposed to work? Currently we have 2 members, we're supposed to have 7. Why aren't people putting their name forward? What's its scope? Should its scope be different? How does that work in with ACOSI, Friends of Lake County, the Mineral Belt Trail Committee? How do all those moving parts work as one? So we need to do some thinking around that. We will lead the development of the proposed Lake County Recreation and Aquatic Centre project into the next phase. So the next phase in that, in my view, is a business case. What is it? Who's it trying to actually target? What's its purpose? How do we run that, if that is the case? Well, you know, I've done a lot of work in business cases. So for those who, just to tell you what a business case is, basically it's a statement of how it stacks up strategically. What goals is it trying to meet? What's the need? What's its management case? How are we going to manage it? Who's going to manage it? What's the best way? What are the options? I talked about the strategic case, you know, how's it needed, right? These are the questions we need to ask. Let me just turn over my page here. What's the economic case? You know, what's the best option for delivering value? What does value mean? You know, how do we look at different value for money for different operational models? You
Yeah,
know?
the questions are questions that, they're great questions, are we getting answers to any of them?
Yeah, that's what we need to
Do next, is what
do
you're saying.
next, right?
He's saying that's phase two.
Yeah.
It's a business plan.
Yeah, but effectively, yes, right? What's the commercial case? Can we deliver it through partnerships? You know, these are all valid questions, right? And obviously finally, what's the financial case for it? Can we actually afford it? If we can, how do we fund it? Yeah, so this is part of a facility development, how you move through a process. So we've jumped to a feasibility. In my view, that's probably jumped one step too far. We need to understand need and supply and demand. Who's going to use this facility? How many people are there that could use this facility? What's the regional context for a facility? People are already going to Silverthorne to swim. What's that going to do if we build a facility? These are questions we need to really dive into and ask to justify a new facility or not. Right? So looking forward to, really excited about leading that. Because I want, as a department head, I want fit for purpose facilities. Question is what is the purpose?
You want what?
Fit for purpose.
Fit for purpose.
Yeah. So it actually meets a need.
But this is all work that you're gonna do as the director?
Yeah.
Okay.
We will run that, how we do that through capacity and capability. We'll have to have some further discussions around. But yeah, we've made some progress, right? So yeah, the next stage is really understanding how this thing could operate. The other thing I'm really keen on is let's improve our data collection. Develop, what are our performance measures? How do we know we're doing a good job? What are those performance measures? How do we understand what people want as well? Because it's a real key question. We use some of that data because we want to work with you to provide you advice so you can make effective decisions. And you need evidence-based, evidence-based to make informed decisions. So we'll improve our processes around that to help you, because my role with you is to provide you advice based on evidence.
Do you feel like, in a way that it's pretty easy to overcomplicate this situation and seeking out of area feasibility studies and assessments instead of just going right to the community? Like, what do you guys want? What are we?
A key question is people don't know what they don't know. They don't necessarily know what they want.
We know people wanna fix up a pool or
Yeah.
get someplace to swim,
Yep. Yep, the
We know
question,
people like curling, we can see this stuff with our own eyes. I'm
Yep.
worried that we overcomplicate recreation sometimes.
yeah,
And, people are broke and they can't afford to recreate. And then we turn that into a racial thing, it's like, there's broke people who wanna ski, let's see what we can do to work on that. Let's find multilingual people to make sure we're reaching everyone. I feel like we start going down these rabbit holes and then we're using money on things we could use to buy transferable ski passes or snowboards, and I worry that this is a common pitfall of local governments, that we're just overthinking where there's simple solutions out there. And I just wanna make sure everything's on the table and that we're really, we're gonna be potentially really crunched budget-wise. And I'm really worried that every dollar we spend overcomplicating is gonna take away a recreational opportunity from a kid who could really use it.
Yeah, I'd encourage you to search alternate terms, cause it won't be just a racial thing. We engage with everyone in the community, and specifically those, we want to engage those who are most socioeconomically disadvantaged
That's,
or historically marginalized.
yeah,
And we're not looking at any race or ethnicity specifically. We're serving all of Leadville and Lake County. So I just encourage you to learn or adapt a little more your language around that, because it can come off as very prickly or just a little.
okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm just making it, you know, this is what I'm hearing and seeing, you know, like we wanna help people who don't have easy access to our recreation. You know, it's the bottom line, it's, we all want what's best, maybe some of our ideas of how we get there might differ, you know, but I know that in all of our hearts, we all want what's best for this community.
Totally.
And it feels one-sided sometimes, you know, like where we're, how we get there. So,
Which side do you mean?
you know, I feel like we're, as a society, we're always turning everything into race. Where instead of, not once did I hear the economic disparity, it was all focused on race. And I feel like the economic disparity is at the core of where the lack of access is for people, you know, like, yes, historically, it's gonna coincide with certain divides, but like the people who can't afford to go ski are why people aren't skiing. You know, and does that coincide with certain other demographics?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure it does.
Yeah.
But like, all I ever hear about is the demographic divide, you know, so let's like open up the conversation a little bit to all demographics who are economically challenged. It's basically just what I'm getting at, cause I don't hear that, you know, that the economic disparity aspect of it, all I hear is the other demographics brought up.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that just because we say we're gonna serve a population who at this moment is marginalized in some way, it makes it a race issue. It's just a metric that you use in any business plan that you look at any debts that you're gonna go into, you're gonna look at any revenue that you're going to obtain. This is just an example, it's not word for word, but it's just a metric that is important because of the demographic makeup of Leadville and Lake County, as well as Colorado and the US. So if you haven't already seen or read what the makeup is of the community, I would encourage you, I can help send some resources through whatever channels are helpful, but I would shy away from just stating on public record that it's because of race. It's just a factor that we consider.
Okay, fair enough, yeah.
Can I also just offer, I've never heard school specifically bring up that they are only serving based on race. And when you say, this is what I've heard, like, who are you hearing that from? Is something that's
No,
really
it was more about like, when you start claiming that one race has a monopoly on certain things because of privilege, that exists, but like, there's so many other aspects to it, and when we just focus on the racial aspect of it, like that, like what was said earlier, it puts an instant wall up and it makes a divide and it separates our community. We can all identify with economic disparity, so like, I feel like those, framing things that way is more equitable and more inclusive, cause there's plenty of economically challenged people in every demographic here, you know, so I know it's more,
Andy, can we pause for a second? Cause Brian said, we're talking about what Brian said, right? About how the outdoors have been predominantly managed by affluent white men.
I just have right here, equity seems to ignore universal class divide. And that's really all I'm trying to
Not.
Focus
Wait,
on
give me just a second. So I just wanna say, Brian said affluent white men, and that actually is 3 different identity markers. Affluent, so wealth, white, so race, men, so gender. So I just wanna say, like, Brian did create some intersectionality in how he was trying to talk about how goals work is trying to create access from all sorts of different identity markers. Now what some people hear is the white, but what Brian said was 3 different identity markers. So I just wanna, like, I think it's fair to say like, yeah, race is a huge issue in this country. And like, I have never heard from Goal that they do not see access as anything but intersectional. Intersectional meaning like multiple identity markers. Whether that's what people hear or not is really important. But
I think
Brian's
the
not,
language is important, like you guys are saying to me, and I'm learning now too, I'm just trying to make a counterpoint of like, you know, when we single out a certain race in any conversation, it can feel offensive to other, you know, people, we gotta,
yeah, you
if
don't,
equity
yeah,
is gonna be,
you don't wanna be the bad guy, you don't want, like, you wanna be a good person, right?
we all want to be
Exactly,
a good
exactly.
person, you know?
Exactly,
So, you know, it's,
and it can feel alienating.
and I'd love to have further conversations about this, you know, and really look at, you know, how I can improve my verbiage and, you know, maybe what some of the triggers are that other people might be hearing that we can all try to work on improving together, I guess. That's what I'm getting at.
But just to clarify, old white guys that's, I mean, you were the one that brought up the race aspect of that.
Of course, yeah, so I think we're getting caught up on the example I gave. So
But it's
Yes,
okay for
that-
you to say.
that's, I mean, you can say that as well. And you have said similar things. I don't wanna hold us up on this too long, but I'm gonna throw it back to Duncan and that's just an example, that's a purposeful example, and that's an example that is being said within the outdoor business industry side of things. So it's just a moment of learning, it's a moment of looking for information and asking questions. Just don't get caught up on words, look at the broader picture and the impact that it's gonna have. So I'm just gonna take it back, Duncan.
Can we move on?
Please, yeah.
Yep, cool, okay. So, one thing which has been talked about from multiple departments is obviously improving our financial systems, our reporting, our grant tracking. We are no exception here, we need to improve the way we work too. We've got a lovely Parks Recreation and Open Space Master Plan, hope you've all read it and keep it by your bedside. For those nights you can't sleep. So we need to prioritise that, how we actually going to implement this, because it's a whole lot of recommendations. How do we prioritise those? How do we work through a logical plan over the next 10 years, plus? These are long-term plans, nothing is ever instantaneous. One of the things in there it talks about is creating a sort of a fee structure or policy for parks and recreation around how we charge. What's our operating model? What does our return look like? What sort of percentage from board of commissioners do you want us to return? You know, recreation is ultimately a public good, so there's a public benefit. What sort of balance have we got with private benefit, you know, or other grants or things that we can, you know, so we need to work through a piece of policy around that, because it's a continuum. Some programs you charge more for, other programs you don't. They subsidise the ones which we've got disparities in income levels, right? So we need to work through a bit of a policy structure to understand what fits where.
Nice.
Other pieces of policy, and you'll probably get a theme here, I'm a bit of a policy nerd. We need to develop a framework or piece of policy around what are we doing with leases? What's the outcomes that we want to achieve? We're given up public land, what do we want from it? Over what term? How do those lessees report back to us about the benefits that they're getting of using public land? These are solid questions. Are leases the most appropriate tool Same as, we've got intergovernmental agreements. We should actually have joint use agreements. An example could be the community field. Because at the moment, with the school district, we're working on an intergovernmental agreement. They are traditionally used when both parties bring something to the table. But that's not quite the case in there. It's more of a joint use agreement. We own it. How are they going to utilise it? What are the priorities for use? Who pays for maintenance? How does that work? So we need to change up some of our thinking, take a deeper dive into a lot of this sort of stuff. Same with concessionaire agreements. It's another tool in our toolbox. Not everything needs to be a lease. So just food for thought.
Are you gonna go through these, Duncan, and make recommendations?
Yeah. We'll bring some workshops, right?
Okay.
Because again, we've got a number of leases which are either expired or up for discussion, or we need to, have free and frank and honest and hard conversations around what's the purpose. Again, another piece of work I'd like to look at is what are our rules and regulations for parks? What can people do in them, what can't they do in them, when they open, when they close? We don't, to my knowledge, have anything in ordinance, any resolution which sets, use. So it's a discussion point we should be looking at. We're going to project manage the development of the climate action plan. We've currently got a consultant under Jane working to develop that over the next 12 months. What's that look like? How's that impact our work?
Was that a federal grant?
State, DOLA.
State. That's a three-year grant, or?
No, so the funds for the climate action plan and the funds for the sustainability position are two separate pots. The climate action plan is being funded through DOLA, Department of Local Affairs. We received that funding in October of 23. We have an extension, is it July or December? Do you remember?
December of 27.
So we got an extension to use those funds.
And then the second one you mentioned, that's a federal grant?
Also a state grant, so that's,
State grant.
yep.
But has that been granted yet?
It has been awarded, yep.
Has been
So that
awarded.
one's through the state energy office.
Yeah, we'll be working through all our grants and awards to understand where our pinch points are going to be, and if any of them are federal flow through dollars, until we've done that piece of work, we don't know. As I said, it's changing by the day. So
I don't have a contingency plan.
yeah, exactly. Obviously, short term, hey, let's continue the great work we do, and celebrate the successes that we have, and tell people about the cool things that we do. Longer term. Cool. So we need to diversify our funding stream and build a financially stable model for our department. I've worked in this industry long enough to understand money comes and money goes. So how do we plan to continue when money is shorter? What are our key things we want to deliver? How do we build that into business as usual? Because we can't rely on grants. Grants are short term, grants are not sustainable. Grants will fund you for a while, but what happens then at the end of it? So we need to do some longer term thinking, planning. What is our core business? How do we continue business when money gets short? And it will.
Especially if we're a community that's long term looking at shifting to a recreation based, basically in our entire community, what happens when Climax shuts down?
100%,
And I think there's a lot of people here who are really hoping that this whole, recreation is gonna fill the void, and that means we've got a lot of work to do.
Totally. We need to look at our park assets. What actual condition are they in? I don't know. It's something the county hasn't done well, across the board.
I mean, when I'm at the skate park and there's kids rolling in with concrete grinders to fix,
Yeah.
shifted slabs so that they can stop catching the wheels.
Yeah.
And then, but, yeah, it seems like, where do we get people who, yeah, the maintenance
Yeah.
needs a lot more discussion.
Yeah,
at a
and
better time.
it's not, they're not simple
Yeah.
discussions, right? One question I've always had in my time here is, who's actually responsible for the asset? Is it me, as the service deliverer, or is it Public Works? Is the maintenance end of it, right? Somebody needs to be in charge of it and direct what's actually happening, right? At the moment, we appear to be operating in a sort of a model where we're reactive, not proactive. It's broken. Let's fix it. Okay, how do we turn that model upside down and be more proactive? This has got a life of X. Okay, that means we need to do regular maintenance on it in years 5 and 7, of a 10-year plan, whatever it may be. Right? So how do we build that skill set? These are deep questions.
You got a big job ahead of you, dude.
Yeah. I know, right? Yeah, looking forward to it. Right? It's my bread and butter. I love it. One piece of work I want to see us do is a park, open space and trail strategy. So we've got this is good. This leads to more work, more strategies. What are we doing with open space? What are our goals? How do we want to have more trails? Where are they? How do they connect? How's that working with an overall systematic approach? How do we create linkages between things? Yeah, these are good questions.
How do we do all that in-house without relying on grants and consultants?
I'll talk to that in a couple of bullet points. How do we develop individual park management plans? What is each park's purpose? What activities can happen on there? What activities can't? What do we want to see as development of the park? How do we look at it from a systematic point of view? Have we got too many parks? Can't seem to maintain them. These are just questions I'm posing. Haven't got a firm view. But how do we manage the assets that we've got within the available money and funding and staff capability and capacity that we've got? Right? So we've got to look at it 30,000 foot sort of level. So an individual park management plan, if you don't know, sort of sets a policy around each piece of land. What's its purpose? What type of activities we want there? What don't we want there? How do we balance use versus resource management? These are questions. Playgrounds. I know you've talked about playgrounds. I've been watching. How do we do a systematic review of our play structures? What have we got? What do we need? Who uses them? Are they located in the right places? Have we got too many? These are questions we need to really work through. How do we develop a strategy for play spaces? Because a play space is not a playground. It could be natural play. Not a physical structure. How do we use what we've got better? That will then guide investment, right? So, doing these pieces of work. So, coming back to the question, well, we need to develop my department's planning, project management and strategy skills. We need to plan forward, not just react. So how do we build that, right? Is it capacity? Is it capability? More people? Different way of working? Yes, there's got to be outside consultants at some point, right? Because we are a small place. We don't have 50 staff, So how do we use our money more wisely? How do we get best bang for buck? Is that investment into our own internal people? How do we manage that? How do we manage that investment year after year? So we've got some big questions, right? And obviously, ultimately, we want to deliver a variety of programs and activities and spaces that people want that reflect their changing needs. Just because we built something back in 1970 doesn't mean it's fit for purpose for today, and today's users and future users. We're not designing things for today's people. Take, as an example, the feasibility study for the rec centre, we're not designing it for today, we're designing it for 20 years. What's people's recreation habits in that? How do we forecast that? How do we understand what people want when they don't understand themselves? You know, it's a bit of crystal ball.
A lot of questions
And it is.
for you,
Oh, yeah.
Duncan.
For us, right? Because ultimately, we need to work on what your priorities are in your direction for this community, so.
Right now, let's work on answering some of these questions.
Usually we're the ones asking.
I know.
Straight
It's a
back
nice,
in
it's a
there,
nice change of
straight back
pace.
in there. So, we care, right? That's really important.
Mhm.
Our department is integral to the fabric of this community. We contribute to quality of life. People don't have fun things to do and a social connection. You know, why live here?
Yeah,
Yeah, so how do we continue to build that? Build the love. That's what we're about. What else have I got in here? Almost done. Finally, here's the org chart. Any questions on that? So we rely on people. We're a people-based department. We're for people too. So, you know, I've got a saying in New Zealand Māori is it's hatangata, 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 which basically means it's the people, it's the people, it's the people. It's why we exist. Yeah. Questions?
I think you covered all of them.
What bamboozled you?
Tim,
Lots.
we're gonna have another discussion, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just
Maybe
making
this
sure
one.
that this is not the time for that,
Yeah,
but we're having a different.
Yeah, we need to take some deep dives on a whole lot of stuff.
a lot, yeah.
And this is the scratching the surface, isn't it? Right, so, yeah. It's cool. It's exciting.
It's my favorite department.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Cool.
You all are the only ones who get to like bring joy to the community,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
straight up joy.
Right.
It's
You
your
like
favorite.
actually stop by anytime, there's always candy in that office.
Mm.
Like, again, I've always seen a parts and rec department, for lack of better words. It's a good news department. Everything we do should be positive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so how do we maximise that?
It's marvelous.
Yeah.
This is, you know, when I first moved here, I came here in a broken down Volkswagen van and had 7 people in a 2-bedroom place, and all I had was recreation that was available to me for free. You know,
Yeah.
it was like, it was my lifeline here.
Yeah,
So
totally.
I'm very passionate about this subject as well, and
Yeah.
I wanted that same stuff to be available for
Yeah.
everyone, you know?
And again, you know, going back to the fee discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if they're still there, but I've donated truckloads of snowboards to the GOL and the gear library when before there was a gear library. This was probably going back quite a ways, but you know, in the very beginning, and they put them in that little shed next to the ice rink, and I don't know if they're still all sitting in there or not, but like, I'm looking at the picture of the gear library, I'm like, is any of that stuff still in there?
Yeah.
But yeah, I want everybody to have the same joys, you know, that we all get to experience up
Yeah,
here, and
yeah.
it's pretty important.
Certainly we will have some interesting discussions and some debates, right? Because we've got some hard decisions to make, some uncomfortable decisions as well. Right? So we'll work through those. Yeah. No, it's great, it's cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd encourage you all to show up to one of Goal's free events. We also have our large outdoor equity summit, February 22nd. You all can chat amongst yourselves if you would all like to go. We'd love to have you all, or if there's a representative of the board there. But we will have partners from across the state, including state department heads, some other organizations doing similar work across the state and some potential news outlets that just like the work that we're doing. And we might even get a snowcat ride at the end of the day.
Nice. Thank you, Brian, thank you, Jane.
Thank you. Yeah, pleasure.
Alright, thank
Thank
you
you, guys.
guys. No more questions? No? Okay.
Cool.
I appreciate you guys' time, I do, and I really
thank
look
you.
forward to having more conversations and seeing how we can make what the best and the most out of what we got, because this particular segment could be under attack from, outside reasons. We gotta really
Yeah.
come up with creative solutions outside the box, and hope we can stretch everything as far as we can for everybody.
Jane, aren't you glad I spared you the whole grooming thing?
Hey, I know it's there. We can name it and then we can talk about it another time.
It's gonna be like the pool conversation. Oh, here he goes again. Talking about grooming.
Thank you.
Next up, we have now Wareham, the state rep, from Climax. If you want to.
See you guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Take care.
Hot seat, yes.
Alright.
Matt,
Hi.
I'm Nell. Very
Nell,
nice to
nice
meet
to
you.
see you.
Andy.
No,
No.
nice to meet you.
Elsa.
Lovely to see you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alright, well, thank you, I'm excited about this format because it's definitely something that was keeping me up at night, was knowing that we were about to have 3 new commissioners and how was I going to, as I just said to Chris, like, there's one of me. How was I going to kind of head it off at the pass and get to see all of you and meet all of you so early in the year when you have all of these other priorities, so I was really super excited to hear about this kind of onboarding format thing going on here, so congratulations on going for it.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is a half an hour, so there was no way that we were going to pull together a presentation of 100 years of Climax for you in a half an hour. So really, I'm here to say hi, get to know you guys, get the super, super high level questions that you have, get a baseline of kind of where are you? I think you and I know each other and kind of have a bit more familiarity on priorities. But other than that, just so that we can then tailor, okay, this is what they need to understand, this is something that's pressing, this is something that if you're figuring it out a couple months down the line, once you have all the rest of the fire hose drinking, taken care of, just to kind of, to see where things are, get you up there for a tour, talk to you about kind of the things that are near term, but really I just wanted to, meet everybody and find out really how we can best accommodate your learning curve, knowing that we've got a pretty big impact on the community, so, yeah.
Do you have a crystal ball we can have
I
to,
do, yeah,
see
it
what's
works
coming
great,
in the
it works
future?
super great, yeah, I'll share it with you, yeah.
That's the one, that's the question.
That is the question, right? I'm sure this is a lot, but,
I'd like to make predictions, especially about the future.
Yeah,
yeah.
who knows what the
You can
market
control the future.
demand
Yes,
for
you can
molybdenum is gonna be in 5
You can
years.
steer the future.
You steer it.
First of all, I'd like to have a tour, and that'd be great, and then, everyone's talking about closure date, and I've heard that they can't find the end to the vein, and you'd like to go underground, which would be great.
So the way we talk about that is it's because we're a publicly traded company, you have to have what's your proven and probable economic reserves, that's, hey, we think that there's this much here at this dollar rate that it would take to take it out of the ground and sell it at this equals life of mine. That's kind of how you calculate it, so you can't go out and speculate, being that, we're a big company. I mean, the current number that's generally out there is in the 2042 range, and again, like I said, that fluctuates, it kind of vacillates between 2038 and 2042, again, based on those numbers, right? But we can certainly point you in the right direction. There was that article that came out in the Democrat, I think it was maybe late August or so, kind of saying, what is Climax how is Lake County planning for the end of mine and all of those things, and so we provided some data there to just point folks in the most up-to-date direction on that, but that's something we can certainly show you where that lives in a more formal setting. Yeah.
And I've talked to the commissioners about this, but is $12 still a magic number, $12 a pound, or is $12 a ton?
$12 to make what kind of magic number?
That was when, I can't remember his name, meeting with your comptroller about that of like.
Oh, with
when-
Buzz?
Yeah, when we should worry about the price of
Oh.
Molly.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's probably not a great answer for me to try to speculate on.
Sorry.
That is not
Sorry.
my area of expertise, but there's so many factors that go into that one. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I've ever heard it really phrased in that way, but if you want me to run that question down for real, I can for you.
But I think just cause based on some of previous conversations they had, I mean, the life of the mine is definitely a big interest, but like some of those other economic indicators, so we've been working with the board, you know, property valuation, there's possessory interest, there's all of these things that tie into the county government's forecasting.
Yeah,
and
on
what
an
we look
annual
at.
basis. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I would say by and large, those things typically don't fluctuate a ton. You know, it's just the same as anyone else's real property valuation. It depreciates over time, and so there shouldn't be a surprise with that slope sometimes. People who are making budgets feel surprised by that, it should be a pretty predictable one. So sounds like definitely you guys would like to hear more from, his name's Buzz Johnson, and he's so kind of works on, I'm just gonna take some notes so we're on first blush, capturing some of the bigger, more technical questions.
What does Buzz do?
He's the comptroller
Okay.
of finance, yeah.
Tim, is there a way we could get, you know, like once the mine stops producing and Climax is no longer paying, you know, Freeport isn't paying the taxes on what's been extracted, and we're just at our homeostasis, like the retired mine will still be producing some property taxes. So can we predict that number? So that we can kind of see like as the mine tapers down, whatever the timeline is, what are we tapering down to? Cause we know it's not zero.
Yeah.
But what is that number? So we can really
Yeah.
see the difference that we're actually trying to make up.
Yes,
Great, thank you.
happy to walk you guys through those models.
Thank you.
Cool, okay. Sure.
And the mine property taxes will be different, whether it's a profitable producing mine and land is valued higher versus when they're dormant and it's a lower value of land.
Yep.
That's what I've come to understand, that's gonna be the big factor that affects.
And they have a lower value, land value anyway, because it's a mine.
It's that base number I'm hoping we can get.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, well, we'll definitely get you guys up to speed on sort of how those things are calculated and the variables there, because you're right, there's sort of some more static things that look like, oh, taxes are taxes, right?
Yeah.
And then there's also sort of pounds and sales and all of those things
Right.
that has a little bit more of a formula to it that's really nothing that you would encounter unless you did mining tax
Right.
formulas and things like that. So yeah, we'll get him to explain that one for you, but I'm glad you guys are thinking about it. I'm glad you guys are thinking about that question there. You know, I was listening to what you were saying with recreation and you know, that's really the thing. It's always gonna be a tricky path, right? You are probably not going to wholly replace the mine's economy with recreation, right? It's just, that's not a bad thing, it's just
What it is.
it's reality,
Yeah.
and so how do you sort of right-size some of your decisions now so that you're not trying to pay for them with recreational funding as opposed to, you know,
Yeah.
mining funding. Do you guys all know what my job is?
No, tell us your
Do
background.
you wanna hear my background? How far do you wanna go back?
What is, I was just gonna ask, what is social performance?
Yeah, I know, it's a silly one, huh? We just in our department kind of talked about like, what do we name this thing? Because that really falls under sort of like how the UN looks at what our role would be. So if you think about like a big mine in another country that's operating and what's the framework and how are they being responsible neighbors from a UN perspective?
Like how Cerro Verde went from kind of being like having a negative stigma to like being this pillar of the community that actually helped
Right,
nurture all these great things
Yeah.
happening in the nearby city,
yeah.
that kind of whole process.
And how would a mine maybe function in a place that has less rules and regulations? I mean, we have so many layers here that there's really, we're not acting independently, we're making all the, there's lots of other ways, we have checks and balances we have to do, but if you think about it, we're part of the International Council on Mining and Metals, so you take a global look of, we're in a community, we're a mine, what does that mean? In their words, social performance is sort of the word that's recognized internationally. We've been community development, we've been social responsibility, you can call it whatever you wanna call it. I think here in the community, it likes to be community, but then there's sort of this acknowledgement, and particularly I oversee, or I'm part of a lot of the conversations with third-party assurance. So we'll say, they'll come in and every 3 years and say, okay, you say that you engage with the community, show us. You say that you have, these environmental regulations in place, show us. You say that, your workforce is trained, show us. So everyone kind of needs a certain title that they recognize from an external perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah, teeny tiny bit about me. I'm from Wyoming. I'm from a ranch in Wyoming. Grew up in Evergreen and Breckenridge because I love to ski and I love the mountains, and that's how I got connected to Climax. Was I worked at Copper Mountain first in operations, and this was before the mine came back online in 08, and I worked with all of the old retirees or people who no longer worked at Climax running equipment, and got to know those guys, and then moved over to the marketing side of the world, which is actually my formal background, and was on the Summit Chamber of Commerce. And when the mine started to reopen, the Climax mine had a rep on the Summit Chamber of Commerce, and they said, we're hiring. And I went and told my team that they were hiring because I was really happy working in the ski industry because that's where I thought I was gonna end up. And they said, no, actually, you know a lot of people around here, we wanna talk to you. So that's how I ended up coming over and working at Climax, and it's been like the absolute career surprise of my life, cause was not intentionally where I was going, but it's pretty cool to find this niche where you get to be in the place that is home, be in the place that you love, have your neighbors truly, genuinely be your neighbors. Like, this is not a job to me, this is doing the right thing in the place that you call home, and there's never a dull moment. And I also totally love going to work because everybody there is smarter than I am, and I learn something new every single day. I've been there 12 and a half years, and it's really cool to sit in that room and be like, oh, I did not know that, or I learn about chemistry, or I learn about how some plant works or something like that. And so it's been just a fascinating environment to be part of something like that. So so really it's the approach of being responsible neighbors, being engaged with our community. So that looks like anything from formally, so I hear you're gonna be part of our community partnership panel. And we, did you know that? Yeah, okay.
No, that was a question.
So the community partnership panel is really sort of like, again, back to those UN, how do you formally have a two-way dialogue with your community? That's that formal piece. It's once a quarter, deck slides, we go through, we talk about the business as a whole, what's happening, in all of the other operations across the board, what's happening with moly price, what's happening with copper, just in case there's something that might be a little shaky. Do know that the CPP is not the first place that you would hear something like that. We absolutely have a commitment to the members of the community partnership panel meeting that if something big, good or bad, is going on, the workforce knows, and you're the next call. So we had to do sort of a reduction in force and a reduction in production during COVID. I feel like it was, if things started in March, I feel like it was maybe April we had this decision. We told our workforce at 9, and at 9:30 I was on the phone with the mayors and the commissioners, right, to say, we just told our workforce this, now we're telling you this. So just know that you, as commissioners, are sort of in this other, other stakeholder side of things here, in terms of you being aware of things, so you don't have to wait once a quarter to find out what's going on with us. But we do a business update, we do a site operations update, we talk about employment, we talk about hiring, we talk about projects you might see during the summer. I really try to make sure, hey, we're doing a project near the highway, everyone's gonna drive by it, this is what it is, so you guys know, if you have any questions. It's a way, it's really meant to be this two-way dialogue. If there's something in the community that's exciting or going on, or someone wants to present out on, I usually do some outreach to say, hey, do you wanna tell the community what's going on? It's everyone, Lake, Summit, Eagle, and Chaffee is what we consider our operating area. So 3/4 of the year, 3 of those meetings I like to do virtually, in the sense that it's only an hour-and-a-half meeting and I don't want people driving 2 hours in the snow for an hour-and-a-half meeting. I'd rather have you participate and listen, and we'll get our face-to-face time in some other way. So typically it's virtual, but that's what that kind of more formal method of engagement is. And again, it's not a public meeting, it's a group of stakeholders. We have representation from the school district, healthcare, local government, whatever. So that's why we have one commissioner participate. Certainly, if you're out of town and can't go, just say, hey, Elsa's gonna be here this month, or Tim's gonna sit in this month, like whatever that looks like. So, yeah, that's that one.
Are you the contact person for community partnerships
Yes,
as far as sponsorships and grants and
Yes.
stuff like that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there someone in the county that works with you currently?
literally from the county
Yeah,
government.
like someone from this county that works for you and asks for money?
Not formally, I think it just kind of comes.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you wanna, maybe explain the grant opportunity?
Yeah,
And then
we
that
can go into
might,
both of them. Yeah, so
yeah.
there's two really two prongs of how that works. So the big one is the Community Investment Fund, and I believe the media advisory went out yesterday possibly for this last one. Did you see it? You don't know.
Oh, no,
Oh,
sorry.
You're just agreeing.
Is it
Yes,
one community investment fund for all communities
It is.
downstream?
Yeah, so for the 4-county operating area, one community investment fund. It is kind of a longer process, but the same identified priority areas, and certainly I'll spell this all out for you guys so you can see it a little bit better. But anyone from any of those 4 counties can apply for grants from us. We initially do, and then the members that score that, I help facilitate it, but I do not get a score in it. It's members of the community. So here it is John McMurtry, put me on the spot, embarrass me, of my Lake County community people. Oh my gosh, it'll come back to me, the 2 others. We have 3 from Lake County, 2 from Chaffee, 1 from Eagle, and 2 from Summit on that committee, that the community partnership panel nominates who's going to be on the community investment committee. So it is community driven, community scored, representative of it. They go through and they do an initial review scoring. So I think we had 36 applications or something last year. They go through, we have a really great matrix, it's built by True Impact, who does the funding for Ford and lots of other big companies. And what we've really found in doing this for years is organizations struggle. They're pretty good at the output. We're gonna have 12 kids in this program and they're gonna graduate, or whatever that might be. But it's those next steps of, so then what? If you get 12 kids through this program, what happens? Graduation rates are better in healthcare, whatever that looks like. So not only are we trying to get good applications, but we're really trying to help these organizations collect all that information in advance so they can write a good grant. So that they can almost have this boilerplate if they go ask for state funding or they go ask another organization for funding. They've already gone through a lot of that work to ask those questions, and they can just copy and paste that into the next application. Because we're always looking at that capacity building piece, right? While we're here, while we're robust, while the community is healthy and going strong, we want to not only on those annual bases, make sure that taxes are good and things like that, but we wanna be building up those organizations that are the backbone of your community and make them stronger, help them write better grants, help them hire for the right people, help them identify maybe we need another grant writer or whatever that might be. So then it goes through that, then the top group that scores a certain win, they come in and they do an interview in front of the panel, just a quick 15-minute interview, do that, and then we finalize all of those amounts for the applications. So that's that big one. And then, I would have to like look at the list and see sort of which orgs come out of Leadville. I'll find that, but it varies each year on what priorities are. And then we have a site investments application. That's where you would ask for sponsorships. That's where you'd ask for those kind of quick turn. It's internal, I review it, I might ask someone if it's an environmental project or something like that, I might say, hey, does this make sense or whatever. But pretty quick turn, it's typically up to $10,000 per organization per year, but we try to be more nimble with that to help with things.
I don't know how far back I'm going here, but I think there was a pretty big community recreation project in Summit County that was funded.
The
Partially,
part of the rec path one, is that what you're thinking maybe?
Possibly. I had heard something on the lines of a recreation center or something that got built in Summit with, but maybe.
There was a community center, which is really what the old CMC building used to be in Breckenridge. It has the word community in it, but it's really the library. And then downstairs, they did a community room. Is the only thing I can think of. I haven't done any official rec center funding things.
Okay.
Rec path, the most recent thing I can think of is working, and it was actually because there was a FLAP grant, a federal grant that came through that was available, that even Mike Conlon helped us work through, and that's how that bridge ended up coming across at the base of Fremont, down by the water treatment plant. So it's that bike path that got everyone through the Narrows, down on the Summit side of things.
Yeah.
And we probably maybe did a little bit of initial like NEPA work and a little bit of like more environmental scoping help with that through it, but it didn't actually come through as a big community investment fund thing.
I guess what I wanna ask, instead of beating around the bush, how do we get a better slice of the pie to help out with projects that we need desperate help with in Lake County that you guys may be able to help us with? What
Are you feeling like you're not getting enough of the pie?
I don't know, cause haven't been in this seat long enough, but when I guess initially what it was is that I hear about big projects happening in other places, and I feel like, man, like we're really struggling here with a lot of real big needs that we have, and how do we come to Climax, say, hey, is this even an option, can you guys help us with this? So, we've got this community fund that you just brought up, and there's a panel that decides on these things, and it's based on metrics and stuff. Is that basically the levers that we're gonna work to try to, ask for help with things that this community can really
Typically, that's going to be, and again, that's our money out of the corporate foundation, so that's not directly just Climax money, it's money that comes out of the corporate foundation. Typically, the answer is going to be, you should apply through that avenue so that all of the information is in place so that we can assess it and try to scale where that project goes. Me personally, that's the only mechanism that I have in order to fund something. I definitely know that the rec center and the pool and all of those things are high priorities. And so it's understanding, okay, how would you fund that? How would you keep it going in perpetuity? What would all of those things look like? On the flip side, I think typically where we end up coming in on a lot of these questions is feasibility studies. Are those like initial things that are a little bit trickier to try to gain initial funding for them, just at least so that you can kind of have your ducks in a row when you do go make those asks. Or if you're coming to DOLA or USDA or, EDA or some of those grants that are looking for, matches, or how do you kind of get that moving along?
Okay, thank you.
But I'll put together a list too in that summary, and just I can kind of show you some of the lake projects that have been funded from a proportional standpoint. And then there's also, you're really the county that gets the taxes as well,
Fair enough.
thank goodness.
Is the bike path dream still alive on the summit side? Or even on our side?
I haven't had anyone directly ask a lot of questions yet. I would say maybe on the summit side, that was kind of an understanding, and again, like I said, that money was a federal thing that they just kind of were able to jump on and get it done. And then their engagement with us much more was like, hey, what size should the bridge be in case you need to get a big truck down the
Nice.
hill, and hey, we're gonna do this, we just wanna make sure your operations is aware of it. I haven't had any conversations with any groups, lately about finishing. I think the next possible phase was trying to get as far as you could up to on the lake side of things, was sort of phase 2, if you wanna call it that, so.
Now, what's the largest ask someone can make this year through the CIF?
You can ask
Any.
for as much money as you would like to ask for.
There's no cap.
There's no cap.
Okay.
But I'm happy to share the media release to you, and you can look at sort of what the average
Sure.
awards are. Yeah, which are, I would say, and philosophically, sometimes like a community foundation or something that's very community driven, they tend to, and there's no right or wrong answer here, but say, okay, we got 100 applications, we've got $10,000, we're gonna split it pretty evenly so everybody gets something.
Right.
Again, we really look at saying, we don't wanna give someone just a portion of some funding and then just absolutely make it an impossible task to try to go, all of your administrative work would be to go get more money when the dollar amount just didn't make any sense. So we'd rather say, what are the real critical key priorities? If we fund this portion of this thing, it's gonna get it over the finish line, or at least to a point in the finish line this year where it's meaningful, right? These organizations don't have a lot of staff. Some of the federal grants and stuff are pretty administratively burdensome, so you wanna make sure that, again, it's the right sort of.
It's enough to make it worth it.
Yeah, it's enough to make it worth it, and really kind of focused on what those priorities are. If the county's really focused on this, and this application's really focused on this, and it seems to kind of be what everyone's asking for, let's help support that, right? Yeah.
And is there like equity and balance considered over time? How much has been given to which of the 4 or 5 communities?
I would say by and large, generally, we tend to recognize that the other 3 counties in the operating area tend to have more resources available, more large businesses that they could ask for support from, and we recognize that Lake County has less resources to ask from, and so if the application's appropriate and it aligns, I would say that typically the conversation, not to mean that it wouldn't possibly favor another community, but there's an understanding that if the resources in Lake County are more scarce for asking for large dollar amounts than they might be in other communities that have some bigger businesses to rely on as well.
Could you extrapolate that for like the last, say, 5 years or 10 years, how much has gone to which?
Sure, I can look that up for you.
That'd be awesome, thank you.
How is Chaffey County, how are they involved and why are they included?
So we are the headwaters of the Arkansas. And no, we do not have a mine footprint or anything physically in Chaffey County, but we have a significant amount of our employees that live there. Yeah, I would say if 50% of our employees live in Lake, off the top of my head, we have more in Chaffey than we do in Summit, from what I can tell. And again, those numbers are what you write down on your employment form that goes to the state and comes back. Maybe they're renting a room somewhere else, you never know, but from a formal thing, so really that's why Chaffey is part of it. And then Eagle County, so the Eagle Park Reservoir is on our property. It was an old oxide pond, and in the 90s when we were not operational, it went to Eagle, and so that's the toe. Eagle County line is the toe of that dam going down in there into that Campbell drainage.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and then like Summit County, that county line is right there, so tailings, water treatment, everything downstream of that is Summit County proper. A little teeny bit of the ore body goes into Park County,
Does
it's
it?
pretty,
Yeah.
way down and over, but someone's tracking that, but they're not formally considered part of our operating community.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Do you wanna touch on housing, another area
Sure.
we work together on?
Which part of housing?
Well, yeah, like I guess, like bank building, Silver King,
Okay,
perhaps the McCarthy parcel, I know that's a much longer term conversation,
mhm,
but we, like county government as an employer, struggles to bring people here and that. You pay a lot more and you struggle.
yeah,
So maybe that joint struggle and where we can collaborate on it.
yeah, and Aaron Hillshorst, who you may or may not have met, he does live here in Leadville, is definitely the one heading up those projects. But just recognizing that what we were seeing was, it's tricky to get into this community, even if you have a good job, you might be coming from elsewhere, you might be transferring in from another mine site, within the company, which is pretty natural, depending on the time of the year. I mean, this is even before housing got really tricky, but if you come in the middle of ski season, you miss the boat, right? And there was just really not an opportunity to get someone in the community, just for that first, you were talking about sleeping, having 7 roommates and, you roll into town and then you eventually make those networking commitments, but if you can't figure out a place to stay day one and you're reporting to your shift at 6 a.m., there's no chit chat around the local watering hole to find a roommate, right?
Yeah.
Because you're here, you're in MSHA, you're doing your onboarding, so that's how the bank building kind of came about, was what if we could just provide sort of temporary landing pad for folks as they come on, particularly our operations, people, and then get, go down to the bar, or go down to the library, or meet somebody out skiing and find out, oh, here's a roommate, or here's a place to whatever, just give yourself some time to think for a second. So that's how that started, and then we've been working for a long time through, the formation of the Lake County Housing Coalition. It was a project that actually started with the Leadership for Sustainable Communities back in 14-15, I think. Everyone sat around a table, they said, what's your number one priority in the community? They said housing. We put a stipend out there, we helped them really create that coalition, because again, like I said, we want to be able to help build capacity around these issues. So everyone's identified housing, how do we tackle that? We need this, we need that, we need to kind of set things up, and that's how it got formed. But recognizing that the purpose of that coalition is different than what might be serving a private employer's needs, right? Summit County has a great housing authority, but you work on those housing projects, they're federally funded, you've gotta hit that AMI, none of that math pencils, and you want people to have good jobs, right?
Yeah.
So we were caught in this weird spot where you make too much money to kind of be part of those programs, but you don't make enough money to really, come in off the ground. So that's, we eventually did say, okay, let's provide some housing for those folks, whether it's for the long term or whether it's to just get themselves, find out, oh, I'd rather live in Chaffey, whatever that might be. And so that's how, Silver King came online. These have all been projects that people came to us to ask us if we would be interested in partnering in, not anything that we went out and tried to pull together. I think we've certainly offered, some opportunities for the county to, if you're interested in, you got a teacher or police force or something that's in need of it, that conversation's open out there to kind of work on that. But it's a long road, it's a tough road to do, and it takes a long time, right? Even on the development side of things, I mean, just infrastructure and, if you're gonna do any deed restriction, or you're gonna, how do you sort of govern an idea like that? And I mean, the good news for Lake is you've got some neighbors that have done a great job, you're not alone, you have some really great allies in there, and again, I'm always happy to make connections, to reach out, to say, if you wanna learn how someone tackled this, or you wanna learn what the pitfalls were of it, you let me know, I'm pretty informal, as you can tell. You get just a wondering question, don't feel like you've got to, wait for the next meeting or wait forever, just ask me. Hey, you were mentioning housing, do you know someone? I'm more than happy to do that, and that's really kind of how I operate. How we operate, right? Aaron's the same way. I can certainly have Aaron, if we do a tour or whatever, I'll make sure it's a day that he's around and he can talk more in depth kind of on these housing strategies here, so.
Do y'all have a plan for when the mine closes, 15, 20 years, and you've still got these housing assets? What happens to those housing assets? Do they become a moneymaker for Freeport McMoran, or is there a plan for what happens to them?
That is not a team that I'm on
Okay.
directly for sure, but believe me, you make these sort of decisions in a company like ours and someone has thought that through, so,
Is
if
it something you
want to,
could
when
find
you're
out
up on
for us?
site, yeah,
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, so.
I mean, it depends on how quickly we can get you guys in the door, cause we can just kind of, either. And my vision is, it's a big site, even if you guys, were able to come visit soonish, you know what you're gonna see, a lot of white, you're not gonna see any reclamation, you're not gonna see any whatever, so I'm kind of envisioning sort of a, come up, quick onboarding kind of thing, get to know it, get your bearings, and then when it's summery and nice and you can really drive around and see things and you've had some time to really think through some of those questions and you're able to kind of, familiarize yourself with some of it too, yeah.
Great,
We can tackle some of that. What else? I think I'm only on here for until 2:30, not on my calendar, but anything, I don't wanna cut somebody else off if they're right
I
behind me.
don't think somebody needs to be showing up here shortly.
Yeah, Kate will be at 3,
Okay.
so if you want.
Good. But I'm happy to keep, just taking notes on, so long-term plan.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Cause I think my Newport contact moved on. Do you have a contact at Newport?
Newport or Newmont?
Newmont, sorry, yes.
What was their,
This thing like
role.
that, kind of like similar to Aaron's, but also kind of like yours.
Okay.
It wasn't fully community or government relations, it was kind of like the Lake County person, right?
Okay.
Who,
Yeah.
If you had a question about their properties and that,
just kind of a
Yeah.
main point of local contact? Sure, I'll ask.
thank you.
I don't know off the top of my head, except that I do know that there's been some pretty significant personnel changes there.
Yeah, there, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I understand that the director of operations is now one of our neighbors.
Oh, here, yes.
So I haven't had a chance to meet them.
He's excited to be living in Lake County.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
See
great.
tire tracks going in and out, but I haven't seen that yet.
Right?
so.
Yeah, I don't know what the official status is, except that I do know that they are headed this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, good. Well, good, sounds like they have good taste in neighborhoods.
It's really
Anything, you guys are hitting the basics for sure.
I'm a little worn out.
I bet, right? How, are these all day things? What is the structure
Yeah.
here? For how many days?
For now,
For now?
For now,
Last
It was
week,
9:30 to
this
5.
week.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
this week, last week was
yeah.
same.
You can come sit through an MSHA training with me if you really wanna,
Yeah.
Yeah,
six
sounds
to 4, you wanna do a little.
As long as I can bring one of those chairs with me.
Yeah.
No, actually, it's worse.
Really?
That's the hard ones, yeah.
For the, cause are you guys gonna go back to 24/7, 365 when the water plant is done on the other side? On Fremont, or?
Assuming that we're not right now,
Oh, I
in
don't
terms of
know.
our
Are you?
operations,
Yes, yeah,
like what
I
is
don't
just
know.
our crew operations.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think we've really changed any crew operations based on water treatment plant
okay,
things, are not super tied together.
okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, no, we're running strong right now, yeah, headcount is, I mean, this fluctuates too, but we just had a new hire class of, I think I heard about 24 coming through. So what that looks like is they come, feels like this week for you guys, right? They come, they do some onboarding, they go through the whole MSHA process and all of that, you know, you need to have 40 hours of MSHA in order to just kind of baseline. But then you meet your crew, meet these things, do little things, so any new hire comes on and they spend at minimum a week just doing those basic things, so we line up those classes and that's how we do our hiring. So I heard it was 24-ish, we always ask everyone, where do you live? How did you hear about us? Did you already live in the community? And it runs the gamut, you know, it's high school grads who've grown up here and their uncles work there and they know what it is, and it's someone who's like, I used to work in Texas or North Carolina and I saw your ad and Colorado's beautiful and I'm gonna make it go, but then we find out if they made it, you know, through February and March, April, May.
Yeah.
It sounds fun until you have a week like last week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you guys fully staffed or is that attrition?
No, it's not attrition, it is a little bit, you know, of ramping up to be able to meet what we can, particularly in like the mine operations. So, you know, mine operations, mill operations, truck drivers, support equipment, those are the basic elements that we're doing. If you use 480 as the ish number at the moment, you know, it's probably another 40, 50, you know, trying to get to that like 520 range. Yeah, we've made some really good strides in the last year, for sure. And then yes, of course, you know, attrition's one of those things, and sometimes that's just, hey, my spouse cannot physically live, you know, like any department, and it's just as, hey, we gotta go, you know? Or kids graduate and they wanna make different decisions, and some people make it up here and they say, I absolutely cannot get my claws into this. You know, our housing options are not perfect, they are not going to make a family of four feel like they've got their own white picket fence. It's definitely for that demographic that either says, I'm gonna go up there and check this out, family, I'll come get you. Or maybe someone who is willing to kind of almost treat it like their own version of fly in, fly out, and spend their shift time here and have another place here. Or sometimes it is someone who's 23 and out for an adventure and they're fine with this arrangement. It, you know, takes all kinds, but we didn't want it to be prohibitive in terms of trying, right?
Something's better than nothing.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it is a pretty fascinating career path to be part of, because even if you get hired on as a truck driver, you don't have to do that forever, but it kind of takes coming in and looking around and seeing all these other things that you didn't consider or didn't even understand what HR was, or global sourcing, or working in the warehouse like this. It's pretty dynamic, but I think your eyes open up a lot more. And we've been working with, you know, outreach with the high schools and Cloud City and stuff to sort of say, hey, if you've got a crew of kids that you know as a counselor, as a teacher, you know, they're just interested in a different kind of path, we're trying to be really flexible and say, come up, check out the site, drive around, meet some of the people who do this on a day in, day out basis, and, you know, just think about it, right?
Get some health insurance and 401k and a track that's not college.
And be kind of sustainable for yourself, right? And I think too that marriage is really great, where if you did grow up here and you do have a place to live with the family or some support there, and you're not trying to reinvent your entire life and this brand new job at 10 or 11,000 feet, life is a little easier, right? But go up, get a great job, so you can have some pretty fun toys and maybe work with some like-minded people. And again, you don't know where you're gonna end up, but you might as well try it. Yeah. Like I said, it was a big surprise to me. It wasn't what I was planning on doing. So,
I feel the same about this seat.
Right?
I'm not expected to be sitting in this seat.
Just two other things, so that you know, just for me as a contact. I'm not currently the chair, but I'm on the Mineland Reclamation Board for the Department of Natural Resources. That's a Senate confirmed position. I'm in my second year of my second term, but we oversee all mining, permits, construction, gravel, underground, minerals, whatever that might be. Rewrote the hard rock mining rules, you know, back in the things, of course, if it's a Climax question, I recuse myself. But just from knowledge and understanding of, you know, post-mine land use and an economic viability for the state of Colorado, that's a seat that I'm sitting in, that's a seat that I listen to every single one of those permits that comes through, anything that has public objection that comes through, and just really kind of getting this really big picture of Colorado and the industry and how we plan for those things. And you should know that from what I've learned in that is Colorado, it just does an incredible job thinking through projects. Very few states, if you're coming in with a new project or a new mine or anything, say, what is it gonna look like when you're done? And show me, you know, so I'm really, really proud of what that department has pulled together and kind of the regulations that are in place and the thoughtfulness that goes through that. I mean, it is down to the detail of what is the seed mix in 50 years that you're gonna put down to ensure, you know, that this goes through. So that's really cool. And then Julie McCluskey just appointed me to her seat. It's for Advanced Industries, to the Office of Economic Development and International Trades, Commission for Economic Development. So that again, and really because we haven't had a lot of people sitting in that Central Mountain seat. There's a couple from Montrose, one from Grand Junction, a lot of Denver, but there's kind of this open footprint here. And when you're talking about opportunity zones, when you're talking about some of those things, Lake County, if you don't already know, but you will soon learn, you get pulled into the region that's over in Fremont County, and you kind of get pulled into Summit because that's kind of maybe what you look like and get affected by, but you're not really in that region. So how do we look at some of these opportunities and grants and designations so that when you're going out and you're looking for bigger funding, you're able to really attach onto that? So that's another monthly down in Denver, sitting through that, being with some policymakers and hearing about all of those grants coming through too. So if you hear something, if you're wondering if a grant is something, if you feel like there's a designation that you just have no idea why Lake County doesn't qualify for it, or you feel like you missed out on a grant or whatever that is, again, I'm probably not gonna really know the answer, but there's a good chance I'll be able to find you the person that can articulate it better than I can.
That's great.
What's the name of that board now?
So that's the Office of Economic Development and International Trade, OEDIT, OEDIT. It's the Economic Development Commission.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that. You're on your way to Washington.
Thanks. Told you I'm a Wyoming kid. I like it here. But yeah, it's really awesome, and it really does, hopefully help, it's time spent not directly in it, but hopefully it's time again kind of spent out learning and looking at things and being able to kind of have my antenna up and bring some of those things and some of that understanding. And I do honestly think that one of the disadvantages of this area is, and Lake's a bit of an outlier, but even Summit and Eagle, I mean, the disparity in those communities, you get sort of painted with this picture of recreation, tourism, everything's great, but unless you're in there day to day, seeing the actual living conditions, understanding the poverty level, understanding the demographics of our workforce, right? And really what they're going about doing. I mean, I talk all the time about supporting our working families because parents are leaving before school goes, they're gone when the kids get off the bus, they're maybe gone for dinner. What does that look like from a true healthy perspective? And how do you expect community members and community fabric to be able to participate in board meetings and recreational meetings and everything if you're spending, 18 of your hours just trying to commute and get about your day, right? So trying to look at it through that lens so that we can be sustainable as a region, right? Yeah, and anytime if you wanna come down and sit as a fly on the wall, they're riveting conversations, just like your work sessions are, but it's been a really great learning opportunity for me,
Yeah,
for sure.
sounds good.
Nice.
Not scary at all to sit in front of Congress and get put in the hot seat and have them ask you all about mining. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Challenging.
Yeah. Well, cool, so you'll get the invite on Community Partnership Panel, again,
Thank you.
if you can't make it, you're welcome to send one of your delegates. we send notes out, that'll be the first one. I'll do a little bit of just surface digging on some of these quick questions you guys asked, so you can kind of get at it. I will talk to, so John Wilmot is our general manager, this is who Chris was alluding to as her new neighbor. You might see him out and about in town. Certainly, if you've got something going on and you feel like it would be important for, you know, hey, we'd really like to have this person here, we'd like to have Aaron, and this is a housing thing here, we'd love it if John made an appearance. Those kind of specific things, we definitely are paying attention to what's going on, but if it's like a, hey, look, if you guys were standing here, this would really be helpful to us. Just, you know, wave the flag and let us know, you know, what you need from us. And then we'll try to get a snowy tour on the books, and you can see a bunch of snow piles that look a little bit like a mine, so.
You guys have an avalanche mitigation program?
We do, yeah, everyone has the RICO tags on their boots, and we have an avalanche watch, just like it's a fire watch in the summer. All of that monitoring goes on, we talk about it, you know, certainly when it's high risk out there. And then Copper Mountain, particularly on the Iron Mask, it's easier for them to blast and maintain that avalanche zone above the water treatment plant than it is for us to go up and do it, so we partner with them. Summit County Search and Rescue just was out here 2 weekends ago, I think, doing, you know, a simulation, digging people out. We do avalanche studies, particularly like out on that new water treatment plant. What's the slope, what are we doing? There's a nice pretty concrete wall that no one will ever see, that I'm sure was not cheap, but it's avalanche mitigation at work. Same thing just with the faces of the degrees in the pit, you know, we monitor that just like we would rockfall, so.
Is all that water treatment stuff done, or is there more construction on the water treatment?
In general, I would say, and of course, I'm not the engineer on that project, but we are in the midst of commissioning it now. So that looks like 90% of the actual structure and things are all in place, there's water flowing through there, you know, kind of testing things out. Okay, if we put this much water in, how does this work? Is this filling properly? You know, it's not operational yet by any means, but yeah, that's all. And it's really nicely on schedule. I mean, this is exactly where we were looking, and I think really at this point, it's gonna be kind of weather dependent and freeze, you know, dependent, which really for those domes, that's a weather and a wind thing, just to keep things feeling steady in there. But that's a big project.
Big project.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's a state of the art. I love it down there. It is beautiful. Like the initial plant, the property discharge water treatment plant, and then this one, and actually the way the water comes through is it'll go into that one furthest downstream first and then comes back up, just by nature of how all those different filter buildings are in it. But that's an easy one in yucky weather to just pop on down. We can even just do a van straight from the guard gate and just, you know, go down and check that out if you guys are interested in that. Yeah, it's impressive. It's really, maybe I'm the only dork that thinks it's cool, but I think it's really cool.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Really impressive.
Yeah. All right, oh, now you have a real VIP here.
Oh, yeah, right.
Cool, well, thank you. It was great to meet you guys,
Nice to meet you.
congratulations. And yeah, like I said, we'll be seeing more of each other, but if you need to see more of me, just say, I have a question.
Okay.
We'll see you.
And we have your contact information. Do you have a card or something? Okay.
This is post 2020, right here. I don't have my card. I'll shoot you guys. I've been working with Liz, and so what I'll do is I'll just kind of put everything together in a little thing, and we've got our external facing website, Freeport in My Community. I'll send you a couple salient links.
Okay.
I don't know if you sent that through when I sent the CVP, what is the community partnership panel thing?
I can't remember,
Email,
but I
it's
have
fine.
that as well, so
Yeah, but anyway, we'll just kind of I'll give you kind of some highlights. You can look
We're not
through.
gonna have trouble getting in touch with you.
Yeah, and then of course there's the bank building right across the street.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good job on that.
Thank you.
That's great.
Yeah, that was a long, kind of windy road, but I think it really worked out great. Really,
Very good.
it's beautiful too. Yeah, so anytime you guys, you know, if you wanna just get together there or just catch me there, I'm happy to jump with you, so.
They're
Alright.
just saying that's probably one of the best downtown buildings, if not the best.
Yeah, it's pretty, it was fun, especially working in mining land where it's pretty industrial. It was really nice to be able to pick out like cute chandeliers and cute furniture and think about it. And two, if you're in there, ideally what we'd like to do, we don't wanna take away anything from the Mining Hall of Fame, but we'd like to kind of maybe just do a timeline there, cause it's really about the present and the past, not past, but historical mining and here we are, this is world-class mining, you wanna do this. We're gonna try to do a little bit of either infographic or a timeline that says, here's what's going on now, for more information, head on up to the museum. But if you're in there or you get a question about something, or you think that there's some content that we're missing in there that you just hear on repeat, let us know and we can, put more information in there, as it comes up if you hear of a theme.
Will you guys weigh in on the CJK milling operation, or do you have somebody that could lend some expertise to us?
I wouldn't say we typically weigh in, I can run that question down for you, and if you have a more specific issue
I
that
think
you're
it's gonna come up
thinking about.
before us, and we'll need some sort of expert to inform us.
I would say based on the seat that I sit in at the state, I'm probably not the person that gets to talk about that at all. But I could,
Advise us on who we could.
I could try to find you someone.
We can talk with you guys about that permitting process because there is a local approval, but the one with the teeth is the state approval.
Right.
So we can talk through that and use maybe like Titan AU or another operation in the county that we've already done, so it doesn't.
And to that point, the way that those permits happen is it's up to the operator to decide if they, like we talked about grant applications, there's gonna be a ton of questions. So an operator doesn't have to go to the county first or the state first, it's up to them. Seems like a lot of times they go to the state first just because they're gonna kind of have to get everything pulled together, but then the state only weighs in on what is jurisdictional, what is truly within, the statutes of that. And then there's other things that are jurisdictional to a county, so even if it comes before the state and a component of it gets, passed, there's all of the other county things that they're still going to have to do that are not jurisdictional to what that approval process happens at the state. So it's really gonna be up to the operator which path they choose, which will come for you guys in terms of, if they go to the state first, you'll have kind of some more information. If they go to you guys first, you are gonna be just have to learn more faster.
We'll add it to
Yeah,
stuff
so
we
those-
need.
Add it to the fire
Yes.
hose, yeah, for sure. Well, great, well, we'll be seeing lots of each other. Yeah.
Sounds
Thanks,
great.
Val, enjoy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nell.
Hi now, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Okay.
Hi,
Oh, yeah.
good, how are you guys doing? What's the format? Okay, really didn't bring much, but just my brain.
That's what we need.
It's the end of the day, Kate, I don't know.
I know, there's not much left.
Especially on a day when they freeze our federal funding, so,
Yes.
yeah,
It's a semi-topic of the day.
yeah.
It's
Cool,
a
so-
common thread.
There's a couple topics that I was gonna update you on, but if you would rather do it a different way, or if you wanna just pepper me, what do you wanna do?
It's more of just like, it's technically training for us. So
Okay.
like, just go over, the traditional relationship roles between the county and the school district. Would
okay.
kind of be a nice and then just how does that picture look for you guys and
Okay,
what are things that have worked great in the past?
okay, and I guess the first thing I would say is that, that kind of is organic over time, depending on what's going on. So would it be helpful for me to go over like the current things that we're working with the county on as a starting point?
Do you wanna just start with what a superintendent?
Sure. A superintendent's basically the chief executive of the school district, reports to an elected board, which is the Board of Education. I'm their only direct employee. And I manage, I do all the administrative work, and then I collaborate with the board on the strategic work, and then my job is to implement that strategic vision.
And who reports to you?
Lots of people.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody in the district reports to me up through somebody.
Right.
I think I have 11 direct reports. Yeah, all the principals, plus a bunch of our high-level directors report to me.
Like your CFO.
My CFO, my HR director, Bunny, who has a lot of roles. Our ELD, our English language learner program director, school nurse, kind of a little potpourri, but I spend most of my time working with our 4 principals.
Who are they currently?
So we have we're running 4 schools. So Cloud City High School is our alternative high school. Kerrigan's the principal. Our high school, Scott Carroll. Intermediate school, Cheryl Talbot. Elementary school is Tanya Lenhard.
Okay.
And all of them came up as teachers through the district, which is pretty rare and pretty cool. So they all have long tenures in the district.
Have you guys made a decision on the intermediate school or, cause last time we spoke, you were talking about maybe abandoning that property and consolidating students?
Yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to update you on. So our facilities plan has been evolving over time, and we talked at length with the former BOCC about whether they were interested in buying LCIS, and they passed on that, which we totally respect and support that decision as not being right for the county. And so we then pivoted. So the driver behind all of this is that our enrollment's declining, our student enrollment's declining, which is very common across Colorado, across the US. There's demographic forces. In our case, there's cost of living forces. There may be political forces, we'll see.
Homeschool.
Yep, there has been some, although I think our homeschool numbers have actually been pretty steady, as have there's a narrative out there that we've got tons of kids choicing out to other districts. That number's also been incredibly stable over time. It's not like it spiked. Declining enrollment is just a reality of school districts in Colorado right now, in vast majority. So we right now have, if we take Cloud City off the table, cause they're a little bit unique, they're in Pitts right now, they only serve about 35 kids. But our other 3 schools, so we obviously have PK2 at the elementary school, preschool through 2nd. We have 3rd through 6th at LCIS, and then 7-12 at Lake County High School. And with our declining enrollment, what we've determined is that running 3 school campuses is not operationally efficient for us. So we had made a decision to consolidate the grades out of LCIS into the other 2 campuses. So the first driver is operational efficiency. Second driver is that LCIS it's tired. It's not the best learning environment, especially when you compare it to 2 brand new best schools. So that was the initial driver. So then it begged the question, okay, well, if we're gonna move kids out of LCIS, what do we do with LCIS? Okay. So at this point, we're pretty sure that no one wants to buy LCIS, which is fine. We have an ongoing cash need. The mill levy override really helped our operational cash needs, but we have ongoing capital cash needs and just sort of reserve for cash flow needs that mean that we need to generate some one-time funds, both to fund the consolidation of moving those grades and just to build our reserves back because they were spent down under the previous administration pretty aggressively. So we gotta sell some stuff. Okay, so we're not gonna sell LCIS, cool. So we think that the building is, while not ideal for 3.6, it's healthy enough for some other functions, at least to allow us to reduce our operational footprint. So our current plan is actually to move the operations that are in Pitts into LCIS, and then probably try to sell Pitts instead. We think that the land that Pitts sits on, I think it's 34 residential lots, right, in the residential core, and it might be far more marketable than LCIS ever would have been.
Yeah.
So that's our new plan. So to make all of that happen, we still need to raise $3.5 to $4 million in one-time funds just to fund all that moving, because we need to create more square footage at LCES, and we've got some other things that are just gonna have to happen to make that consolidation happen. So obviously we can't sell Pitts before we vacate it, so that's not really part of this initial push to raise cash. So what we're pursuing instead is selling vacant land, which you all know because we have an agreement with you all to sell some land, which we can absolutely talk about in more detail if you want to. I think we're pretty close. Chris is helping us get it across the finish line with some reports that we needed to send. So that is 950 that we will use toward that 3.5 million that will help us consolidate. So obviously we need to raise another 2.5 plus. And we have some other irons in the fire, nothing as inked as the deal we have with you guys, but we do have some other irons in the fire. So that's gonna be our big push. We could try to go a COP route like you guys are to raise the money to consolidate, but the payment on that COP would be about as much as we think we'll save operationally, so it's sort of not ideal. So we'd rather raise the cash and just be able to do it and be done with it and then gain that operational efficiency, which we are going to desperately need because the state budget is also looking terrible for us. And so the mill levy override turns out to be 2 steps forward, 1 step back on the operational front. So we really need the operational savings that we'll gain through consolidation. We gotta raise the cash to be able to execute that consolidation. Does that all make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't make sense how we got here.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry,
It's okay.
but it makes sense what you have to do now.
So as soon as we have other public news about other potential vacant land sales, we'll certainly share that. But we're just really, that's our next big focus now that the mill levy override is passed, is raising that 3.5, so.
What are the next big issues that you guys are struggling with right now, like the money thing? Are we having, I didn't think it was gonna move this fast, but are we having any issues with kids feeling safe in schools?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I have been spending a lot of time on that issue. Our board last night, and Heath and Dan were both there, which was awesome. They passed a resolution, that restates our commitment to safe and welcoming and equitable school environments and sort of restates all of the laws and all of the district policies that protect all kids. So they passed that last night, and now that that's passed, we're gonna be doing a bunch of communications. Today we recorded some just video snippets from Board of Education members in English and Spanish that we're gonna publish, just sort of saying, hey, doesn't matter how you got here, you're welcome here. So we're gearing up to really communicate that message, and I would say one of my principals, the way she said it today was she was like, it's getting a little weird, like there's definitely more fear kind of bubbling up, but we haven't seen big drops in attendance yet. We haven't had, major phone calls. I'm super engaged with a bunch of community partners, having very regular conversations with them about what's happening on the ground. We've done a ton of internal operational planning for what do we do if ICE knocks on the door? All right, front office staff, what are you gonna do? Here's what you're gonna do. So, you know, we're kind of ready. I think you're never really ready, but it's a time of great uncertainty and like wondering and anticipation, I would say.
What about, did you hear about Alamosa's school situation?
No.
Was it Tuesday? Oh my gosh. The ICE came and waited for parents to pick their kids up from school. So they didn't go onto school property, they didn't go into the schools. But they came to the school area to wait until the parents got there.
Oh, that's
to be able to pick
interesting.
them up.
Cause I'm on a superintendent's, we have a email distribution, and today the Durango superintendent said, has anybody had ICE come to their schools? And so far there's like 40 responses and everyone's saying no. So
Yeah,
that's
they
the
didn't go
first
on
I've
to the-
heard, but they would have, I mean,
Yeah.
Alamosa hasn't replied, but I'm sure they'll say,
Yeah.
they weren't on our property, but they were
They were trying.
at our school, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, just
So,
wondering.
I had not, so thank you for telling me that.
Oh, yeah. One of my daughter's best friends is terrifying. She's just like experiencing constant anxiety. There's just so much fear. Other mental health services, I know you can't like alleviate the fear, but the like anxiety and not being able to engage in school, how is it that, what kind of services are you all able to provide your kids, you know?
So we have licensed school counselors at 2 of our 3 or 3 of our 4 schools, and we have a social worker at the 4th school, which is great, but not enough. They're also, almost all of them are grant funded. So we do, we do absolutely have referral systems and safety nets to catch those kids.
Yeah.
And
And it is
it
what
is what it is, and a lot of our kids have a lot of trauma already, so, yeah, it is not an easy time.
So sorry, Kate.
That's okay, that's the work. Not easy for you guys either,
Gotta play the hand we're dealt.
that's right.
What other updates do you have?
So those were my big facilities and operations updates. I'm glad Andy asked about immigrant families and kids, that's obviously very top of mind. And then, of course there's our core mission, which is student academic outcomes, which we're just processing our mid-year data, which is, there's some real awesome bright spots in there. So we're really feeling, I think, optimistic that we're doing the right work. So that is obviously a big focus. This is the last year of a big 5-year literacy grant. So we're really trying to accelerate systems and learning, particularly in the area of literacy. And we're seeing some really nice momentum there.
How we doing with sports? The football resurgence is.
Okay. So we updated the board on this last night
What's so funny
too.
about that?
Just the way she responded was funny.
No, like
It's a great question.
let's hit all the hot topics. Yeah, so updated the board on this last night. We found out yesterday, or what day is it? Maybe Sunday, I don't know. That Lifetime Foundation is going to donate $50,000 to the Federico Field re-turf.
Okay.
For a while, for a variety of reasons, we were exploring a reseed, but that has been debunked as viable, so, good. So we are pushing for a resod, it's $200K, Lifetime's committed 50, the district's gonna, for the moment, we're gonna kick in 20, and then we've got another 20 to 30, they've fundraised 10, I don't know. Anyway, we're gonna use that pot as a match, and Amy is submitting on Friday a grant to, there's an NFL grant program for the renovation of football fields. Touchdown, no pun intended. So we're gonna try to get 100K out of that grant and then like we'll be there.
Yeah,
Whether we'll get it in time to do the project in time to start practice in August, that is gonna be a very small needle.
yeah.
So, we might not be ready for that, but I think we've got good momentum and I just can't imagine we don't have a good shot at that grant, so we are pushing forward on that.
Does that field have a sprinkler system?
It will,
Okay.
after this project.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's driving a lot of the cost.
Yeah, so the project is scrape it. Actually, an interesting development in the quotes we got was vendors saying, well, what we're gonna do is, we're gonna strip all that grass and we're gonna chew it up and make that the fill. So you don't have to bring in a bunch of new fill.
Right.
And we'll use that to level it, and then we'll lay the irrigation, and then we'll lay the sod. And the school board last night also committed to the ongoing maintenance of that, which is 15 to 20K a year. So we are driving toward a renovation of Federico, so that football will have a place to play and practice.
Doesn't include any of the track or any of the
Not yet.
bleachers, okay.
Not yet. As part of the grand vision, but I think the last estimate for that whole project was like $7 million and
But
Just
this,
bleachers and everything.
this part of it was 200?
200 to resod it. That 7 million included like a synthetic turf field, a whole new track, bathroom, like it was like the,
Are you short on the 200? Cause it sounded like you got about.
well, if we don't get the NFL grant, we're gonna be looking for 100. So we'll have to go back to the board and see, I mean, if it weren't for the state budget situation and the federal context, we would have been in a position to allocate more of the MLO funds, but we're like right back where we started, where we're like, how are we even gonna, meet our basic needs given these evolutions in our budget context, so we're kind of squirreling those MLO funds away because we may need them to plug an operational hole between now and consolidation. Cause the last thing we wanna do is run 3 really skinny schools, cause people will start to crack. Like I cannot pull staff out of those schools, so I gotta float them until we can consolidate. So I need to squirrel away some of the MLO funds to float next year. It's all connected.
Can we help advocate at the state level? Is there anything we could do?
Yeah,
for the
you
school district?
can, and I don't know if you read I was interviewed for an article in The Sun that came out last week. I think you can use those talking points. The big push at the state level is going from 5-year student enrollment averaging to 1-year student enrollment averaging is pretty catastrophic for a lot of districts, and so I think that a compromise on that point would be very helpful. We will still probably receive less funding next year, but it'll be a lot better.
Yeah.
That would be that's it. I mean, like one talking point is anything they can do to at least fund districts at the same level we're funded at this year.
Okay.
Yeah. But on the sports thing, that one other county intersect is Community Field. So we have an IGA that was signed in 2009. However, both of our teams are coming together to explore updates, basically. I don't know if it'll be a replacement or an addendum, but some changes to the way we collaborate about Community Field. So they're having those conversations. And then of course, our facilities are also used by the county, like our gyms mostly, right? So we constantly are working together on those things. So that's another area of overlap. But our sports teams are kicking butt, if that was your question,
I'm doing good.
yeah,
So
Beyond impressed with those kids.
if you keep the middle school, that keeps that intact, and then, you know, eventually we gotta start digging into this pool situation.
yeah.
And,
Yeah, and where we are on that is we remain very open to that conversation, with whomever wants to have it. I think the new use of LCIS for the functions that currently live at Pitts. Now Bright Star's a little complicated, right? That they're not our organization, but they are our renter. We really don't wanna displace them. So, and like we have a pressing need to do some things. So I think the new uses of LCIS do open the door to thinking about that school as more of a community-based asset, not just a school district building.
Right.
And, you know, we've been at some tables starting to talk about that, and we're very excited for those conversations, like what does it look like to have more rec department use of the LCIS gym, cause you don't have an elementary school there anymore. Like what does it look like to look at the kitchen for commercial kitchen uses? We're probably not gonna fill the entire school, we'll probably have some office space to lease, right? I mean, eventually the same capital issues that made the county pass will come, like, we will have to eventually do some repairs in that building, but we feel that we have enough of a runway on that, that it'll be viable for a while.
Starting that, you mentioned Bright Start,
Yeah.
and is that at risk from this move, or?
No, I mean, we've been in very close contact with them, and what we've said to them is we are holding a wing for you in LCIS. The problem is
Uh-oh.
childcare licensing is pretty rugged, and so they will have to do some renovation to make that site work. And however, we are not clear, and I think they are not clear as to whether there might be another new build coming forward to meet their needs at Harrison Park, or,
Who's our contact person within that?
well, I work with Cisco, who's on the board.
Okay.
Yeah,
For Bright Stars,
yeah,
yeah, or
Or Lauren,
or Lauren.
Lauren Barrett.
Barrett.
Yeah.
Go through Lauren Snyder can get you connected
Yeah.
to Kelsey from Public Health is also
Yeah.
on their board.
And I mean, we have no interest in vacating Pitts and selling it from under them, which is why we're giving them a very long runway. You know, we want, the earliest we would vacate Pitts is summer 26, and it could easily be summer 27.
We're just looking at a juggling act with all these great ideas without yanking the carpet out from underneath anybody.
Exactly, yeah.
they're definitely trying to raise funds. They're like actively trying to raise as much capital as possible.
They wanna have their own space.
Like eventually they kinda have to. One of the problems is spending the capital on renovating LCIS, but then needing to spend all those funds all over again
Right.
in like 3 years when Harrison's ready or whatever. The timeline for Bright Start, I think, is the is really, really tricky.
Yeah,
could you sell on, if you assume $50,000 a lot, times 35, that's 1.75. Building's a tear down, could you sell that to somebody?
which one, Pitts?
Yeah, and then rent it back for a couple of years?
Potentially, depends who wants to buy it,
Developer or?
yeah. Yeah,
Me, I can't afford it.
yeah.
Somebody's interested,
Just to be clear.
Yeah,
that's 35 lots right downtown.
yeah,
Primo.
yeah, it's primo, right? We just don't wanna rip down the childcare center while we're doing it, so. And we are, you know, obviously like highly sensitive to that, and like, we need the village here, right? Because we have certain needs that that impact our long-term viability that we've gotta attend to, so I can't attend to our viability and Bright Starts all by myself, and I'm not implying that anyone's asking me to,
Yeah,
but I just wanna say like, that is, I would love for that to remain a community conversation. And same with rec, right? Like, to your point, like, well, which pool solution is the right solution, right? Like, I don't necessarily have a dog in the hunt, but if it becomes that LCIS is the right place to renovate a pool, like, we're all in on that. And if the county decides it's gonna try to build a rec center somewhere else with a pool, we're also all in on how do we repurpose that pool space to another community purpose, right? So,
Is the pool drained and is
oh
the,
yeah,
the building being heated so it's not getting moldy and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
our biggest problem right now is there's some mice.
Oh,
I got an email I never thought I'd get, the subject line was mice in the pool.
Oh, that's a hoot.
But they're all over it,
That's
it's being taken care of.
okay, cats.
Was it they're coming in and then can't get out because they can't crawl the
I-
back
They weren't like, they were, I should
Or
rephrase,
the
they weren't
leaks that-
in the pool.
Oh, in the pool.
They were in the pool,
Okay,
Like spiders in the
yeah,
sink.
yes, that's what I was thinking, that they got in and like, oh crap, I can't get back out.
Yeah,
That's hilarious.
well, we should try and get a work session going on that building and the pool. Get people, you know, now that there is that yearly funding from the city for the pool.
exactly,
And see if we can make something work.
yeah, yeah,
Some
we're,
kids out
we're all in, we're ready to have that conversation, and I guess, I mean, this is slightly radical, but I'll just say it. Like, we're even, and I haven't really run this by my board, but I would be willing to have a conversation with our board about, again, like, what's the mindset required to start thinking about that building as a community asset that meets multiple community needs, as opposed to, it's ours,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And there's some models in other communities. My favorite is the Third Street Center in Carbondale, where they took an elementary school and they did exactly that. So I think my board would be at least willing to have that conversation.
I would love this conversation to continue.
Okay,
The gym is a huge asset.
huge asset.
Can't lose.
That's been part of the plan, right? Is that pros will use the gym when they can.
Yeah.
Still,
100%. I would say more,
yeah.
you know, because we're gonna go from having, 300 little kids to 35 alternative high school kids, and then we are gonna consolidate Project Dream at LCIS. So we'll run our whole after-school program there, which will increase usage of the LCIS gym during after-school time, but it will free up the LCES gym and the LCES turf field, because all the after-school kids will be at LCIS. So we've communicated that to Karen already as like, hey, looking down the road, you're gonna have a big opportunity if you want it to try to leverage facilities at LCES during that like 3:30 to 6 time, which I think has been a big crunch time for them. So it's like this crazy puzzle, right?
Crazy puzzle. I almost like was like, oh, what about the library? And I'm like, alright, this is a whole separate work session question, like, would that even fit in there?
Can we come to the next meetings, or what is the deal with the collaboration meeting?
Mr. Cans.
Or is Lauren still representing their?
Lauren is, I mean, I think that working group that we've got going about some of these collaborative ideas, I think I wanna kind of respect that group and that process.
Okay.
So we're meeting on February 10th. And so maybe we could discuss the fact that the commissioners want to engage in this. Cool.
Excellent.
Thank you,
Good
Kate.
job out there.
Thank you.
Keep at it.
You too.
Crushing it.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thanks guys.
Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, Kate.
Chris, you'll let me know
I'm
when
so
you're,
sorry,
if you're all set
it's,
with
I
it.
think we're set,
I think you are
because
too.
we don't have to attach all those reports, we
You
just
just have
need
to list them,
And so
and can
that's,
you list them from what he sent, or do you need us to?
yeah,
Okay,
no, we're
sweet.
doing that, so I think I'm waiting to get the copy back from, Sandra, in terms of it, yeah, but the clerk's office is closed this week.
Okay.
So she's sent it to them, or needs to present it to them for reporting next week.
Sounds good. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, you too.
Is this your last one?
Ben is our
Ben
last
last
today.
The closer.
That's for last.
Come on out.
Okay, huh?
Can only get better.
Oh, come on.
No,
I
they're
mean,
so
in
pretty.
terms of the severity of the issues we confront.
100%.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Alright.
Yeah. Handouts, I know.
And this paper.
How are you all?
Just Dandy, you're our last one, so you are the last, but also we're like,
a little
Well,
saturated.
we do a lot.
yes,
here
you
with the
do.
county,
Yes,
so.
we're ready.
Okay, alright, I'll start with a couple of basics that you all probably know, so forgive me if this is totally review, but the college is its own local district government. It is the only college in the state of Colorado that is like that, except for Ames Community College in Greeley. Right, so we're actually kind of unique in our own taxing district, we have our own trustees, so we kind of have our own electeds that we all work for. Create some weird zoning stuff, that we'll probably get to work out in the next couple of years, which will be really fun. Other than that, I don't know that has a massive impact on how we operate. We operate like a regular, higher institution of higher learning, but we have a special relationship with Leadville and our tax base in that you all, and our businesses especially, pay for us. So I'd say CMC is a little bit more accountable than your average college to workforce concerns from your business community. Climax calls and says we want something, like, we listen, whereas CU might be like, who are you? Whereas, Climax sends us a large check, and so does Aspen, so does Vail, so does Copper. So that's a little unique, we are a little bit district government. We have 11 campuses, I oversee 2 of them, Leadville and Salida. Salida is our newest campus and just came into the fold 5 years ago. And so we have been withholding their tax revenue for the Salida community only for the last 5 years. So you'll see us doing a lot of building there in the next near future. That is not coming out of the general fund of the college, it's Salida specific. There was an agreement with that community when they joined. Leadville Basics, roughly 500 students a semester. About 100 of them live on campus. We have 218 acres of property that we manage that you all are very well aware of. People don't know where yours stops and ours starts. We put up signs to help them understand, but it's very much fluid, between all of that. So that's college basics. Any questions on basics of the college? How we operate? I think you're all pretty familiar. Cool. Alright, so here's some of the stuff we are currently doing together. The previous board of commissioners gave us $300K for Tim set aside to start working on housing. This came about specifically because the college at that time, was working on housing very actively across our entire footprint. Several of your staff members over the years have been over to Breckenridge, including Tim, to kind of see what our housing projects look like over there. We always sort of say our housing projects, while they're student housing, are workforce housing. Our students all work. CMC students and workforce are the same people, typically. I'm really curious about alumni housing, because we find our students, if the whole point of CMC is to develop local workforce, and they all leave because they can't afford to live here, that seems like a giant miss on our part. So we're really starting to think about alumni housing. So the initial investment here was because, and I don't know if any of you were here at the time, maybe Matt was, there was housing up behind the welding shop by the fitness loop a long, long time ago. That's where the student housing was before the current dorm.
Interesting.
I think this is like late 90s.
Yeah.
Before those,
Not
old.
No, I think I've been playing in those woods since the late 90s.
So there was housing up there, that got torn down.
Okay.
And so when I discovered that in the plans, I was like, I wonder how good that infrastructure is. Because if we could figure out that infrastructure, we could figure it out. So we went together with the county and we did a study and we found out the infrastructure's all fine. It's all there. Water's there, sewer's there.
That road, that just stops, used to go to the housing?
Yeah, we used to go around the housing.
Okay,
The housing was in those woods right there,
Yeah.
between the welding shop and that road.
yeah, interesting.
So, we started doing research, the county, said, let's collaborate on this, and gave us the money, we did the initial study. We found that we can fit 2 36-unit buildings there, and we have green light from sewer, sand, water, Excel, and everyone, and the highway, it wouldn't impact the 24 College Road intersection that we can move forward. So now we're using the rest of those funds, I think we spent like, what, 80K or something like that? Just on all those initial studies, from the engineers and architects and things like that. Now we're moving forward, and so our goal is to have actual, with those funds from the county, to have actual, almost shovel-ready projects that we can start applying for grants for. We don't have the money, you all don't have the money to actually build. The 36-unit buildings that we build are around 14 million. They were like 11 when we started this a couple years ago, and now they're 14. So we wanna have that so ready that when grants come along, obviously the federal stuff is throwing everything sideways. There was a new email today from the state on you guys' side.
Yep.
That, I'm not sure what that means for lots of projects they're working on.
Been a common thread through every conversation
So
today.
we wanna be ready for whatever funding becomes available, but we don't currently have any funding to take this beyond planning.
Okay.
That being said, you all should know that CMC is starting to have very initial exploratory conversations around a bond. The bond would be across the entire college footprint, so not just Leadville, but all of our campuses, and would prioritize trades and housing. And that would be it. And we would name specifically in some sort of bond, or actually it would be a bond, it'd be a mill levy, exactly what we would put into that project. Construction trades would be a big investment in Leadville, as would housing. So we would win significantly if there was a college-wide ballot initiative.
Wow.
But that's an if.
How would
And
that
we-
work, just in the
So
It would be a
our
statewide.
boundary is the school districts that we partner with.
Okay.
So our boundary is essentially Salida School District, not BV, Lake County, Steamboat, Summit County. So Steamboat's like just part of Route County, it's not all of it, it's not like Oak Creek in those places. Ville Valley, the whole Roaring Fork Valley, all the way down to Rifle.
So it would be each community voting, or
We all
All
vote
of us.
together.
you would all vote as a,
We would vote as a collective,
As a CMC district.
as a district,
Yeah.
to either do a mill levy or not. We'll do some polling and stuff to see if this is a good idea before we go forward with it. We think that right now, that trades and housing would do well. And CMC, if you remember a couple of years ago when local tax districts were given the opportunity to lower their mill because of the crazy things happening with people's housing prices, CMC did that. So we actually could raise our mill again and still not hit where we were.
Yeah.
Even though it will feel like it because everyone's housing doubled.
Yeah.
Right? So we have some room within our mill to actually increase, but we'd have to go to the voters for that.
Yeah.
Because of the new special legislation that passed last summer. We no longer, because of that legislation that passed last summer, we don't feel like we can go out and just spend money because we are now capped to that 5%. Right, historically, the college, we always run our budget at inflation or less. As we've always had this buffer for capital improvements whenever the tax revenue was above that. Now that we have that 5% cap, we're not feeling very comfortable. And so that's why we have to go to the voters to do something, like our next big round of projects. All the other housing we built, we took on debt. We would not do that again. So, that's the housing piece. Questions on that? I mean, it's super exciting, but there's also no money to actually do it, but we will be ready when money is available. And Leadville, because of this work we've done, will be the next on the list with the college.
Okay, so if there were an increase across all the districts, the promise of it, or the verbiage would kind of be like, we're gonna put this towards building these alumni housing units in everywhere, but we'd just kind of be the first in line.
I don't know exactly how the ballot language would work, right? Cause you
Yeah.
want Aspen to approve it, but you don't want Aspen to think they're getting something, cause it's impossible to build in
Right.
Aspen. So that would be tricky.
Right.
I don't know that they would spell out like Leadville, Salida.
Yeah,
But I can tell you all, because of this collaboration, Leadville is on the top of the list.
across many CMC areas.
Right, and there was historically a perception across the college footprint that Leadville didn't need housing compared to everywhere else. And now that perception
It's
has
different.
changed.
Yeah.
Good.
And I think people are starting to realize we are the workforce of Vail and Summit County. And so whatever investments you make here do benefit those communities as well. So I think it plays well politically, but I don't know. Tax increases are always tough. So, Okay, that's a complicated, big, exciting one. Grooming's actually more complicated in Leadville. Grooming's actually more politically challenging and fraught, than a $14 million housing investment. That's, yeah, we should do that. No, actually, I think we made great progress on grooming. I think the thing that our community doesn't fully understand about the college's role in grooming is that our grooming is primarily a student learning experience. And any other secondary benefit to the community is fantastic and wonderful, and we try really hard to meet those needs, but it has to be like about students and their learning. And so, you know, there's been people in the community that have been upset at different points about, you know, our grooming. But that has always been our mantra, is like, this is for student learning. And we groom when the students are here, and so Christmas is always a really tough time for people. And so we've actually collaborated with the county significantly to improve it. We now train a groomer or two each fall, and then the county hires them. And then we let them run our groomer on our gas, with the county paying them to drive it.
That's wonderful.
Fairly sure there's an MOU somewhere, Chris, close your ears. So that's kind of, and that's why the grooming is so much better these last 2 years. We also, the college is much more difficult to groom with snowfall than other places around town. So the east side gets groomed a lot sooner, it gets more snow, and the roads are a lot smoother. So the college is always like hard to get going. This year, we also agreed with the county that we will take the mineral belt from Dutch to Cal Gulch. Right, so everything you've seen groomed there, that's been us. We're grooming that section. But once again, we're trying to like line up a student schedule, so the county was really hopeful that it'd be Mondays and Fridays, and every time it's snowed more than 4 inches, and I would not say we've hit that mark. Because that might not be when that student's available, whose turn it is to drive the groomer. So we've tried, but that's still a little bit of a work in progress. We are using the Nordic Pulse app, somewhat intermittently and inconsistently to try to keep people updated. But those things are happening, and then we also, I think we've been quite helpful to Jane and her team on just grooming, like technical expertise with grooming.
Nice.
So we have a roller, very high-end roller that Sterling has made. It's a drum that we pull behind a snowmobile to pack down the snow. We like to do that twice before we groom. Then we like to groom with an implement before we groom with a tiller. So we're really always looking at mid-December before we actually put tiller to the ground. Golf course could be earlier, but the conditions are really tough down there with the wind. You know, so we're happy to help with grooming. I think there is some conversation about us helping with the other half of the mineral belt, given the county's challenges with your groomer, I believe. Is that true?
Yeah.
So I think the team's helping with that. The problem for us is the students are not qualified for the section from Cal Gulch to that turn. And the students are not qualified to go up and down where the bridges are. And our groomer doesn't fit on the bridges like your groomer used to. So we can't groom the bridges, our groomers are too big.
So you go down and around?
And the students really can't. That's like a tough bit of driving down there. So we're more than happy to keep helping and keep collaborating on grooming. I think there's lots of potential. I firmly believe the county should just groom the golf course with a pull behind implement and not even worry about a tiller, because it's super expensive and it's not that high quality of skiing with the wind and with like the snowfall down there, and with the golf course not wanting you going over the greens, which the most interesting thing to do is go over the greens. But of course, golf courses don't want that. It's not best practice for golf course management to ski over greens. So I think the golf course can be pretty affordable for you all to manage with high school kids, and we're happy to help train them and work with them. And then, you know, then I think the east side and our trails and Mineral Belt, I think we're on the right track. So, questions on grooming? It's been good this year, right?
It's been a lot better. The problem is the weekends when there's 2 inches of snow on them. You know, my thought is we get something like they got at the golf course, the side by side. With a Ginsu, and use that to tune everything up, including the college if you let us, and then try and keep it groomed properly, but just do a little tune-up for the kids and for people who wanna come and bike and ski and walk.
Yeah, I think 2 Ginsus for the county, right? And you have to pull a Ginsu with a tracked vehicle, you can't pull with a sled. We tried. We have an implement you can pull with a sled. It's even cheaper and easier to operate. That I think you could have high school kids working for Felicia doing it.
The problem with that is it's cold, it's a bit more dangerous, and you have to really know how to operate a sled,
You have to know how to drive a sled well.
and the liability's a lot higher with a sled, so side by side.
Track side by side is really easy,
Mhm.
it's a simple thing, and you
You
could pull
can-
ARB implement with that and you'd have to do 2 passes.
Mhm.
Rather than a Ginsu. Ginsus are a little tricky themselves, cause they're
Sure.
really heavy.
Yeah.
And then we're happy to always hit stuff with the tillers, you know, when it's
Yeah.
appropriate.
If we did purchase something like that, and this is just supplemental grooming, not as a master plan, but would we be allowed to help with the college trails?
Yeah, absolutely, although we're more than happy to groom our trails when if there's new snow.
Yeah.
Cause we do weekend labs and
Yeah.
stuff like that. For us, the trick is like the holiday breaks when the students are gone.
Yeah.
So, but I think if we can continue working with Jane and her team and Felicia and her team, I think we're on the right track.
Mhm.
But the problem for us, and we can talk about this more, you know, is the mineral belt from Cal Gulch all the way back around, that's I think the more problematic area. Cause we would not typically want to groom that with our groomer very often. Cause it's just not quite student friendly. We're happy to do it. What we've always done is done it once in a while.
Mm.
Like right now, you know, it's real nasty with that wind drift.
Yeah.
Would be a good time for us to go out and do it, cause that's a good learning opportunity for students to see like that tricky grooming.
Yeah.
So we would do it all right now, but we wouldn't wanna do it all as often as everyone would want it.
Why is it trickier? Because of the going down across the road and back up?
That's tricky, and then the part from Cal Gulch to that first right-hand turn, when you're coming back north on the mineral belt, because the way the wind blows, your cat can start getting kinda like this, and so you have to use your blade
Yeah.
to move the snow to keep it flat, so you don't make the trail like this, and then it gets worse and worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
You're not blading it out correctly, and that's a bit tricky, because when you're blading out, there's that rock wall that's held in by mesh wire. And so if your blade grabs that,
Yeah.
that's gonna cost us all a lot of money.
Ooh.
So that's just a trickier area, my professors don't love the students doing that part.
Okay.
They're happy to do it once in a while to show them, but they don't wanna like make that a regular part of our cadence.
But these kids that you're training and now that we're paying to groom, would they be capable of doing that?
After like a year, when they leave and get a job at Copper.
Yeah.
Since there's grooming that happens there in some capacity, what's the overall like feeling for you guys on the train park? Is that technically publicly available with waivers signed?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Alright,
We'll get to that, we can get to that in a bit. Now that is, you need to be with a club or an institution that carries your own insurance.
okay,
We allow CCMS to use it.
Yep.
Under CCMS insurance. We allow Team Summit to use it under Summit insurance, but it is definitely not open to the public.
okay. It's just a lacking thing in this community.
Oh, I
that, you
know.
I know Cooper says they're gonna put some stuff down, but you know, their past history doesn't really
I haven't seen it yet.
give me faith in what they do put out, and I told him, like, if you guys make the tiniest little things, it actually like increases injury risk, because then people who can't even ski or ride yet will be like, oh, I'm gonna hit that.
Right.
So, you know, as a member of one of the entities that
Yeah.
was allowed, I didn't
Yeah,
understand
you are
that we
allowed.
only had access because we were part of that group.
Yeah, Alex has a facility use agreement on file
Okay.
that you guys have basically unlimited access to it, as long as you don't interfere with classes.
Yeah. Darn, I didn't know that wasn't just for groups who have their own insurance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'd say we are not like, we don't police it, but certainly don't put it out there.
Right, well, then that's why, it's for good reason.
yeah.
It's unfortunate, but that's the reality of it. I would like to someday figure out how to offer that to the community with.
Well, we'll get to that in a second, I have a plan.
Oh, so,
Get Outdoors Leadville, pretty straightforward, there's a lease that we have, they use our property, they use the trails. I believe they pay their own water, electrical, heating and such.
Yes.
We do their snow removal and internet, yeah. So, but it's fine, it's a complete, like, it just runs, it's great, we love it. Wildfire mitigation was really big and it's not done yet, and this has been my giant fear, that we're gonna have all those piles and we're gonna have trouble getting them burned.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the county has burned their property and we are next in line,
They're done half.
they don't have, so we need to get ours burned, that's a high priority for me.
all those little hobbit piles
Yep.
next to the
Yep.
trails up there?
Yep, those need to get burned, that was part of the co-swap project. Our WIC is now in charge of the plan, and then Bo has become a burn boss.
Yeah.
So really, the rule is you have to have 3 inches of snow on the ground, but you don't want, like, when now we have too much snow. So it'd be hard for them to get back there with their vehicles and do it. So we have a really tiny window, unfortunately, in Leadville when it's actually appropriate to burn. And we did not get as much done this fall as I would have liked. So we need to make sure our WIC and the fire department burn as much as they possibly can in spring, when we're in that window of 3 to 6 inches of snow. And whatever they don't get, they need to get your property in first, because yours is a little trickier, it's down, and the air blows to the high school, the school district and the hospital, which is not great. So we just need to get that done. For you all to know, Sarah was like the main commissioner I worked with on all that. So I don't know, as you divide up your duties, whoever ends up being the wildfire person, I'm sure we'll chat a lot. We have a lot of meetings with wildfire, Forest Health Council, Upper Arkansas Watershed, all the utilities, there's a lot around there. So we don't need to go into it in a lot of detail, because one of you will probably be the commissioner that focuses on wildfire, and then we can become super good friends in this area. Just so you know too, we do have a grant from the Colorado Department of Higher Ed to create a wildfire mitigation program out of Salida.
Cool.
So that we're working closely with Envision Chafee, the whole, wildfire protection plan that's now moving into Lake. We are working to support that on the training side for employees. So that is in the works. We're working closely with Colorado Fire Camp. It's all in the works, nothing's happened yet. And this is a really tricky workforce challenge because the salaries are terrible. When the forest catches on fire, the salaries are not that bad, but before the forest catches on fire, the salaries for mitigation are awful. Insurance companies are paying, but I'm having a hard time getting to college to think that this is like an area we should invest, because there's no workforce demand on the salary side. Even though we all know there's huge workforce demand on like the need to manage our forest a little bit better. So that's in the works. Whichever one of you ends up being my partner on that will be great. I had been Felt down in Chafee and Sarah here, working on wildfire mitigation, and Envision Chafee, and Envision Chafee now kind of includes Lake with the wildfire protection plan. So that's good stuff. We gotta burn our piles. So. And then fire education. So we do, the fire department and us have an IGA. I wanna say it's for like 10, 17 grand, something like that. Part of it's student fees, because they provide all the materials for the burn tower. So I use student fees for that, and I have a 10 grand. I have a 10 grand contract with them. I have a 10 grand contract with the fire department that they use the burn tower to support our fire academy.
Dan was here earlier and chatted about it.
Okay. Dan has really big plans for a training center. The college will support that in very small and incremental steps and in kind. Dan's vision for a multi-million-dollar facility, when we just built a facility down there, is not something that's on the top of the college list of capital projects. And I've told Dan that. And I think Dan and Brandon, my professor, who also does work with Dan, I think they have like big visions, and I think it's great, but I think it will have to be largely grant funded. The college is not going to fund this out of capital. I think we will, this year I put in a request for, I think, 15 grand to bring power. Next year we'll dig a well. The year after that, we'll maybe put up some lights. You know what I mean? Like we'll do this through small capital, because anything under $500,000 I can do through capital requests to the college. Over $500,000 to $1 million, it has to go to the board of trustees. And there's like a 60 project list across the college. This is not even on that list yet, so that's a little further out there. But I love working with Dan, love the partnership, but on our end, it's gonna be a little slower. We do lots of space use with the county. We have a general facility use agreement. Because you're a close partner of the college, you get to use the space whenever you want. Previous commissioners have extended that offer to other entities and agencies. That does not apply. So please don't tell everyone you know they can have meetings at the college for free. That is for the county as a close partner of the college. We will charge other people like PLM or whoever to have meetings at the college, because we have basically a policy that our board of trustees passed to make it a little bit more fair and consistent, that we do charge unless you are part of the college's educational mission, which the county is. So you guys, any meetings you wanna plan, any events you wanna host, just call Joe, super easy, and you can set those up, and it's covered in the facility use agreement. But don't just tell everyone in the world, like Aurora Water, people like that.
Where's community coffee fit into that?
Community coffee's been hosted by a college trustee forever, and it just runs. Bob hosts it. It's not really officially a college program. It's just Bob. And Bob's listserv. I think if Bob ever chooses to walk away from it, we will pick it up. or the EDC will, or the chamber will, or someone will. I think we all value it, and we're happy to host it. But once Bob's not doing it anymore, we'll have to figure out who's actually in charge. Yeah, and then we do have some offices that we host, like CSU Extension is a collaboration, we give them office space. Is it free? Do I charge you for that? I'm gonna charge you for that.
No, you don't charge us for that.
Okay, I don't charge you for that, I do charge CSU Extension for BV property.
Yes.
Yeah, it's BV. And then we have tons of we've kind of tried to keep all the Forest Health Council folks, we've tried to give all of them free space in exchange for working with our ESS program. So we have like Harmony Jumps up there, Sturl's up there, Arwick's up there, I believe, CSU, not Extension, but like the Colorado State Forest. They have an office up there, McMurtry and the Community Fund have an office. And so we are hosting offices, and then I believe we're gonna host the Legacy Foundation wants an office.
Oh.
So we're trying to like have lots of people on campus using the space.
Nice.
Okay, future stuff, that's kind of just in the pipeline, in the works. Obviously, I think Kate alluded to, there's ongoing conversation about recreation, gym, trails, etc. We're in for all those conversations to whatever extent we want to. We basically let Sterling build whatever he wants on campus, and then we pay him a small fee for maintenance to take care of the trails. And so a lot of the trails cross from county property onto our property, and that's fine, and no one really knows. And it's all just one trail system, that goes between county and us. And if there's funding down the road to make our trails better, we're all in for it, but we're happy with the current arrangement as well. It's going fine. We allow use of our gym to any community partner if they bring the adults. Alright, so the college, we will not dedicate resources to gym supervision. It's not part of our mission, but if you bring the adults, you can use the gym. So if you have a responsible party who carries insurance, like the school district can use our gym whenever they want. A couple years ago when basketball was tight, they used our gym for practice every night, that's fine. Fire department uses our gym for exercise all the time. So as all these conversations are happening in the community, our gym is totally fair game if it comes with supervision. So, Dutch Henry. So, this is probably the most important thing that will come across your desks today. So I hope you're really paying attention at the end of the day here.
You have our undivided attention.
I
Ben.
have 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Well,
All
then,
the
yeah,
time you need.
basically,
Chair.
Dutch Henry, officially the ski hill itself belongs to Cloud City Mountain Sports. It was a land swap with the county from the tubing hill many, many years ago. So the ski club actually owns the steep part of the hill where the skiing occurs. The county owns the tubing hill. What we want to do is put a lift on Dutch Henry. We are now finalists for a lift coming out of an unnamed resort to our north. If we can get Doppelmayr to agree to relocate it and support the lift, which they've basically agreed to.
Who's Doppelmayr?
Doppelmayr is the manufacturer.
Okay.
There's 2 lift manufacturers in the United States, Doppelmayr out of Austria and Leitner Palma out of Italy and France.
Okay.
And so the lift coming out of that resort is Doppelmayr. Doppelmayr wants to sign off on the relocate. We will probably within the next month or so engage in a capital campaign to install that. That doesn't impact you all really because it's all on the Cloud City Mountain Sports property and the college's property. It's not on your property. However, we came to learn it is zoned residential, which is insane to me because there's never been a house at Dutch Henry ever except that one little one.
There's a little shack.
The little shack.
There's a little shack right
Did you
there.
mention
There's 2.
There's
Right,
2.
there's a little shack and then right around the corner there,
There's the Dutch
a
Henry
really old
cabin,
one.
there's no plumbing. So we will have to work through that on some level to install a lift, but I think that that's fairly straightforward.
Wait, la. Are we allowed to hear about this?
But what?
Well,
Zoning change? Land use zoning?
Wait,
No,
well, no, it's not.
Land use is,
We're not making a
legislative.
decision.
Okay.
He's just saying that it's not pending yet, that likely it will be requested in terms of this overall project. So yeah, there's no issue with you hearing that he doesn't have specifics to give you now. So it's not an ex parte communication in terms of that, and that would be a collaborative project with the county. Because even if the county wants to do something different with property,
Yeah.
if it's zoned a certain way, we have to go through the rezoning process for that too.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily an outside applicant, because we own part of the property adjacent to it, so.
Yeah. You won't impact
It's
the
okay.
property.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand. It's not like I'm
Nuance.
Yes.
thinking,
Yeah.
yeah, just so I can make the call when you are not here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Good question. The master plan for Dutch, we do have a Dutch Henry working group. And so the bigger long-term vision, and you will come to learn about this if you have not already, is that the curve in the tubing hill is not something anyone wants. My professors hate it. It's not best practice of tubing. It's not how you're supposed to do tubing. You all are liable for that property because of not meeting, modern tubing standards. And so what we would really like to do for the property, kind of phase 1 is install a lift and use that on the ski hill. Phase 2, we would love to culvert the creek and straighten out the tubing hill and install another lift or magic carpet or something to access beginner skiing terrain adjacent to the current tubing space and build a terrain park in the woods between tubing and Dutch Henry.
It's pretty steep for a.
Terrain park.
We have bulldozers.
This is a lovely dream, Ben.
Thank you.
Yeah, what a fabulous.
Yeah, and so we
dreamscape.
actually, and so Spencer Stanek has drawn it all up, voluntary basis from Mountain Works. He's a skier architect. The truth is, getting the lift in place and getting that moving will probably happen in the next couple months. I think that's in motion. The longer term vision of beginner terrain and tubing, like those are really your gateway drugs to snow sports. For people who want to get into snow sports. And so we really want to make it more of a community asset. We need to do tubing. County recreation could totally fund itself off of tubing. Like tubing is very, very lucrative.
Yes.
And so if we had a tubing hill with a magic carpet or with some kind of like surface lift that could pull tubes and skiers, you could access beginner terrain to one side and you could access tubing to the other side. And then we would do a lot of dirt work down through the woods to have a terrain park kind of up above all that you could also access either from the other lift or from that lift. And when there's another lift coming out of Aspen this summer that's a Lightner Palma, we're also working with Lightner Palma on to see if they would support a relocate of that lift. So we could potentially have 2 different lifts, one accessing beginner terrain, one accessing steeper terrain. If you ever really want to do tubing, you gotta go magic carpet.
That's so sexy.
$1 million though, magic
Just
carpet.
so exciting.
And this would be not like Dutch Henry's current situation where it's not accessible to the public.
What we would propose is that the ski club and the college would long-term lease or give over to the county whatever land makes the most sense. And then the county essentially becomes like the Forest Service and the college becomes like the operator. Right? And so we would need to do some land swaps and stuff like that. That doesn't need to happen for phase 1, of just getting a lift in the ground.
Right.
But if we were ever to expand access, it needs to become county property. Because the college and the ski club don't wanna operate open to the public kinds of things.
Whose insurance would it fall under, you think?
Ski Coopers. You guys already paid the bill, just throw it on there.
Oh. Ben, this has been so much fun. What a wonderful
Alright.
way to end
You guys
the
already
day.
carry stereo insurance.
Yeah.
And do a 17,000 additional for Mountain Guard for that property.
Okay.
And how much to operate those lifts? You're gonna need a guy at the bottom, guy at the top.
Well, I think we can operate an initial lift just with college students like we do the Nordic Trails, right? They would just, it'd be part of their studies.
That would be,
So phase 1, I think we can do with no extra dollars and cents just through class.
Haven't we had some issues already with that being understaffed there and people, bad actors doing things that shouldn't be done on the tubing hill? How would we
We have.
ensure that doesn't happen? Put this whole thing at risk.
I think that what we do is you'd follow Colorado Ski Area Safety Act to the letter of the law. Because we would become an operational resort. If you read the Colorado Ski Area Safety Act in detail, it's mostly signage.
Yeah.
We would have to just completely sign it like crazy in every place. Right now, we are not actually liable as a ski resort because we don't operate uphill access. We just groom. So we're certainly liable if someone tubes from the top and dies. It's not good, but it's not like we're ski area. Once the lift goes in, then we become ski area, and so we have to double down on our efforts with signage. And typically, the Ski Area Safety Act in Colorado has been quite friendly to operators.
Yeah.
As long as you did your part of signage and
Last
warnings and all of that.
Decade or so, that's gotten a lot more protective of the
Much more
industry.
protective, right? The Winter Park avalanche case, I think, is in this situation, no matter how you feel about the broader question, it's good for this kind of thing, right?
Frankly, I would love to see, and if there's a way to, incorporate the tubing hill into the overall
That's what we
resort,
wanna do.
because right now, we're not, our sovereign immunity doesn't apply to the tubing hill, because it's an improved facility, and so we don't have the benefit of that. And so this being able to then tag into the other statutory protections would be a benefit to the county.
Would this be something that would be easily accessible to local residents who wouldn't normally be going to a ski area or anything like that, you know,
Yeah,
like,
that'd be the vision for it, right? Is like it's the most accessible version of skiing available anywhere in the entire country.
yeah, we were just having a conversation.
I think there's probably 2 or 3 different ways we could do the like actual arrangement. I think the college would love to be the operator in the sense of doing all the infrastructure. I don't think we wanna be the operator in terms of ticket sales.
Right,
I would think that Get Outdoors Leadville would be the natural
Yeah.
entity to take that on.
yeah,
And then there would be some kind of season pass program, whether paid or unpaid. Whether County Rec runs it or Gold runs it. In Durango, it's County Rec that runs their little hill in town. There's 7 or 8 of these around the state, the tiny hills that are run by County Rec or city municipal governments. So I would think you'd wanna contract with us for operations, but I would actually think either Goal or County Rec would wanna actually be the operator. And I think we can then ensure that it's still like mitigated access, but incredibly affordable,
yeah,
right? Cause what we don't actually want this thing to turn into, we don't want to undermine Cooper's business model. Right, we don't want them on a Saturday be trying to have every tourist and parking their youth group buses in our parking lot and trying to ski on Dutch. Like, we don't really want that. We really want this more for like, you know, maybe a group of kids from Denver on a Wednesday who's never learned to ski. Sure, Leadville's for that, like we would support something like that, but we don't necessarily want it to become a tourist destination for Dutch Henry itself.
right,
We'd rather be more like local kids. You know, and I'd say local kids extends to Summit, Eagles, Salida, BV, like, I think we'd wanna work with all kind of the access and the outdoors kinds of opportunities that are out there for people. And really make it so that groups that historically haven't had access to skiing, it's like super easy. And I think we have people who would underwrite the rentals, who would underwrite the equipment. I mean, I don't think that all that part's very hard, it's the operations that's hard.
yeah,
What about a facility with the rental, the bathrooms, the
Right.
snacks?
That would definitely be, I think, like a phase 3, right? So call phase 1 the lift for the racers, call phase 2 this like expanded access. Phase 3, I think, would be more infrastructure.
An infrastructure building that could also help with the Nordic skiing programs.
And I think this naturally becomes your county park and ride.
Well, maybe with sanitation moving down from their offices, like that's the only infrastructure that's currently set up in that area. Maybe there could be some collaboration with sanitation.
there's our rental shop.
Yeah,
Sanitation's
rental
actually
is
open,
nice.
sanitation's actually quite open to this, you know. Historically, they had been really against it. Now, culverting the creek is currently sitting with Ann and her team. And basically we have a working group that we need to get back together. Because it is historically a Superfund creek, we wanna be really thoughtful about how we culvert that creek. The original culverting project that runs under our building was dads at night with trucks. I don't think we're allowed to do that anymore, so I think this is gonna have to be an actual official
Unless it's at
project.
night, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So if y'all lit that pathway, nobody's gonna see us.
I know. So I think that's something that Ann's court that her and Erwin are researching a little bit.
Okay.
Steamboat, just so you know, when you're at the base of Steamboat, there is a river that goes through there. In the winter, they just put it in a pipe and then cover it with snowmaking. That would be about 700,000 gallons of water for that snowmaking project. So it's not a small amount of water, but Steamboat does not actually bury their creek. They just in the winter time put it all in the pipe and then snowmake over it. And then in the summer when the snow melts, they take out the pipe, you have a creek. So Ann and Chapin are researching that part, but that would definitely be kind of like a next step to take it beyond just an initial lift. It's like truly beginner terrain. Because Dutch Henry right now is wildly inappropriate for beginners, it's very steep.
Yes.
And we groom it to make it as icy as possible.
And go fast.
That's exciting.
Fun.
So yeah, I put that on last because I thought it'd be fun to finish with.
Yes.
It's exciting.
Thank you.
And the college is very supportive. The college is willing to engage in capital campaigns and everything else around Dutch Henry. I think the initial challenge with some of the Dutch Henry development is the college didn't see how it directly tied. But now that we've gone so deep into the world of lift mechanics, now I think the college is understanding why this is not just Ben's pet project, but is actually a good for the good of the industry.
Nice.
The whole ski industry is behind it.
Nice.
Amazing.
Yeah, fun.
Well done.
Thank you.
Way to just stick with it.
It's been 10 years.
I know. Wow.
All right. Any other questions for me in the college? Like, super excited to have you all on board and love working in the county. We do a lot of cool stuff together.
Yeah, thank you, Ben.
Yeah.
None for me.
Cool. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
That was illuminating. And exciting, the last part for sure. We get so little of that.
Positivity.
Can we direct questions to proper links and
I'm happy to,
None for me, is that school
Right.
bond monthly?
no,
Okay.
I'm happy to pass along to staff and I will create answers for all of the questions.
If any are for me, just shoot them my way.
Okay.
okay,
Cool, thank you all.
thank you,
Thank
Ben.
you, Ben,
See you,
take care.
Ben.
Burning rubber over there.
Just so you know, I'm gonna stand on this table, I'm gonna reverse the fan, and I'm gonna turn it down.
Okay.
Cause the wind blows right in my eyes, I got contacts.
Drying you out.
You know, whatever
Yeah.
you need.
Yeah.
I think it was designed to make meetings go faster.
I didn't know they worked, I'm happy to see they work.
Yeah,
They're tied to
Well,
a
if that's
switch
what
on
the
the
chairs
wall.
were designed for, they're not working.
right, yes.
Okay, we wrapping up then?
Yes, we'll be
Okay.
back tomorrow at 9:45, talking budget. And then the afternoon tomorrow is, finance, deeper dive into the finance policies and overview.
Alrighty. What time we starting tomorrow?
9:45.
9:45.
So you guys, so if you wanna go to community coffee, you have time
Okay.
to
Is
go to
community
coffee.
weekly or every other week?
Weekly.
Weekly,
Mhm.
Every Wednesday.
okay,
Pace yourself.
Yeah, really.
I used to go like once a month, max.
yeah,
Was my, maybe twice a month, but I had a lot of things going on.
okay. Well, it is 4:12 PM, January 28th, Tuesday. We are going to close this work session of the Lake County Board of County Commissioners. Thanks everyone for input and for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.